Welcome to Novels Wonderland, Oshi no Ko. I just wanted to be in a band. Synopsis. I was reborn in a strange place where people have stars embedded in their eyes. But the people here don't seem to know what rock is. Chapter 1 to 40. I just wanted to start a band. 315 words. Fold cover. Rock. Though it was nearly buried after the metal craze died out, it is a genre that spent almost half a century fundamentally reshaping the landscape of popular music. Born from a fusion of gospel, the hymns of enslaved peoples, the blues of Black Americans, and the country folk traditions of white Americans, rock began its life as the music of the oppressed, the anthem of the weak. Because of these origins, rock, despite its popularity, was never intended to be planned music, churned out of some factory driven by massive capital. It emerged as a way for the underclass, those far removed from social privilege, and the working laborers to find a voice in their own way. Unlike mass-produced factory music, it prioritized an artist's class background, their philosophy, their convictions, and their raw personal experiences. This is why rock was hailed as a legitimate form of art. Through these unique traits, it could share a genuine, visceral connection with the public. Rock marched alongside social criticism and movements seeking to break free from oppression. It was a populist, anti-elitist genre that represented and comforted the common people. However, as the late 1980s saw the meteoric rise of glam metal, hair metal, pop metal, and LA metal, heavy metal transformed into just another mainstream sound, standard pop songs dressed in leather. The inherent soul of rock was corrupted under the guise of capital. The result was a rock scene dominated by tracks that felt like grotesque products of capitalism, manufactured with nothing but profit in mind. Having lost its roots, rock eventually collapsed into a state of stagnant mannerism. Stripped of its power to resonate with human emotion, rock became nothing more than jarring, abrasive noise to the public ear. Rock was discarded. And I, who dreamed of playing that music, was also discarded by the crushing weight of reality. I just wanted to start a band. Chapter 2. I just wanted to start a band. 2. 661 words. Making a living as a guitarist in Korea is an exercise in futility. And if the music you're playing happens to be rock, that's basically announcing your intention to live day to day on nothing but 951 packets of shinramyeon, barely scrounging for survival for the rest of your life. That was the first thing I heard when I picked up the guitar in middle school, obsessed with a band called Oasis. Sir, are you only a musician? Me? My primary occupation is working part-time at a convenience store. You're that good at guitar and you work at a convenience store? Yeah. This guitar stuff is just a side gig. A convenience store clerk as his main job. Usually, isn't it the other way around? As a naive kid, I took his words as some kind of weird joke. But now that I've grown older, I realize that my teacher was speaking the absolute gospel truth. Failed again. A mere 1,000 views. That was the pathetic result of a video where I swallowed my pride as an artist seeking pure rock and roll to cover a popular weeb song. I should have known. Exactly. I was just another dime a dozen unemployed guitarist in Korea, who had majored in the arts. Specifically, a college dropout. As someone who considers the guitar my life's calling, I can confidently say it is the single sexiest instrument in the world. An electric guitar is capable of manifesting every sound in existence. Furthermore, it is indispensable to rock. Since it's the part that commands the most attention after the vocals, it's a fantastic instrument for attracting the opposite sex. The only problem is that it doesn't pay. A select few make a killing, but the vast majority merely survive. Even after playing a show, the leftovers barely cover a single meal, and you have to dump a fortune into the instruments that are more precious than your own life. And then there's the weight of the gear. Carrying all of it means you end up trudging across crosswalks like a turtle. And that day was no different. I was on my way to earn my daily pittance. I can't be late. In South Korea, what happens when a low-tier E-class session guitarist, who spends his days scouring job boards, shows up late? His livelihood gets cut off instantly. No CCTV. If I just jaywalk here, it should be fine, right? If forced to choose between a shred of conscience and my meal ticket, I'm the kind of badass who picks the meal ticket every time. Because that's rock and roll. I checked the traffic, ignored the red glare of the signal, and began to bolt across the street. It was a low-traffic area, and I was built sturdy enough. Even if a car clipped me, I wouldn't die. As long as it wasn't something massive, like a truck. But life rarely goes according to plan. Wait. My body felt weightless. I was launched, quite literally, into the air. It was only after spinning several times in midair, after being thrown by a massive truck, that I finally grasped the situation. A truck. Not a truck. I had been hit by a truck. And just like that, I died. How many times had I imagined it? Standing in a packed dome stadium, playing the guitar, feeling the electric shiver of a crowd singing along in unison. Touring the world, drowned in the cheers of fans from every corner of the globe. Well, I was a Buddhist, so they'd probably reincarnate me, right? As the cacophony of countless YouTube notifications rang in my ears, my consciousness faded into black. To think someone like this was still hidden in the shadows. I've never heard an idol cover like this. He needs to blow up right now. With this skill level, this should be interesting. The face is decent too. You give it a shot. Happy ending. Chapter 3. I just wanted to start a band, but I was transported to Japan. 528 words. Kono bangumi wa, goran no sapansa no teikyo de ukuri shimasu. This program is brought to you by the following sponsors. I was definitely in a car accident. A massive one. I was hit by a truck, sustaining injuries so severe the bleeding shouldn't have stopped. But why am I hearing Japanese? Let's try to be logical about this. I was hit by a truck, and when I wake up, the first thing I hear is Japanese. I don't feel any pain. I look around, and there's a photograph of me and my late father. What is this, some kind of space-time distortion? But I'm sure I threw all those family photos away. No matter how I look at it, unless I've sustained brain damage and I'm experiencing a hallucination, this situation makes zero sense. I was pulverized by a truck, yet here I am waking up perfectly fine at home. Rationally, it's impossible. First, I'll head to the bathroom and wash my face. That should clear my head. What the hell? Why is Kurt Cobain in here? I stare into the mirror. The reflection looking back at me is a man with a muscular build and the face of Kurt Cobain. A remarkably youthful version, at that. Startled, I scramble back into the room to find my phone. Good God, it's not a Galaxy. I've been a die-hard Samsung user my entire life, and yet here I am holding an ancient LG folder phone. And it's not the 2020s either. It's clear now. I've been transported through time and space. And specifically to Japan in the early 2000s. I should head outside if I want to figure out what's going on, right? To be honest, while the situation is baffling, I can't help the surge of excitement. What kind of country is Japan? It's the land of rock. For decades, the music industry there was anchored by rock music, the very birthplace of countless legendary bands. Unlike Korea, the Japanese music meta was led by the rock scene. There was no systemic suppression of the genre, and the school club environment allowed young talent to pick up instruments early. It was a perfect virtuous cycle for rock to flourish. Great bands are always born from the curiosity and rebellious spirit of the youth. As a lifelong rock purist who pursued the genre until my dying breath, this was nothing short of a miracle. I could finally hear the authentic sound of Japanese bands with my own ears. Given the scale of their rock scene compared to Korea, the pay would be better too. My quality of life would be incomparable to my previous existence. No matter how I look at it, this is a gift from God. Forget the American dream. From now on, it's the Japan dream. But then again, life never goes according to plan. It seems I've been transported to a world where rock doesn't exist. And why on earth are there stars embedded in that idol's eyes? Is she wearing special contacts? The character from that anime song I covered, didn't she have stars in her eyes too? Chapter 4, I just wanted to start a band, but it was a world without bands. 999 words. What is the root of the difference between music manufactured by agencies and the music of a band? It stems from freedom and honesty. Music and groups created by agencies are meticulously planned and organized solely for commercial viability. Ultimately, as products strictly designed by capital, they become riddled with lies that have nothing to do with the artist's own ego. On the other hand, bands are organized and disbanded freely. Because of that, they are frank and sincere. A band's ego is not distorted by an agency. To affirm one's true self and reveal it honestly, that is the rock and roll that determines a band's charm. That is why a rock star is not created simply by playing guitar and singing with a few stage moves. It is an ego filled with self-conviction, and the resulting dignified presence that truly makes a rock star. And in this world, while there may be stars, there are no rock stars. That was my impression after exploring the outside. Rock stars can exist even among idols. This is because the criteria for a rock star are an honest, sincere, and confident appearance full of self-conviction. However, the idols of this world, for some unknown reason, are filled with nothing but lies. In a world where genuine liars are treated like rock stars, I slowly solidified my resolve. I would show them what a real rock star is. A lie is just a lie. I've made the decision, but where do I even start? Usually on streets where young people gather, you'd see youths carrying band instruments, singing praises to their youth. But in this world, forget youths with instruments. I don't even see anyone carrying a common acoustic guitar. The streets were filled only with youths dancing to loud music or singing over machine-made Mr. tracks. Surely there must be people who play instruments. Does the concept of a band simply not exist? Should I head to an instrument shop after all? I stopped a pedestrian to ask for the location of a nearby instrument shop. There's usually at least one in every major downtown area. It had to be around here somewhere. Excuse me, do you happen to know where there's an instrument shop nearby? An instrument shop. Instruments are mostly for music majors, so they'd probably be near the universities. Only for music majors. Even things like electric guitars. Electric guitar. Oh, you mean those guitar-shaped things that make that weird, distorted static noise? I guess so. I'm not really sure. Maybe if it were a wooden guitar used in concert halls, but otherwise. A wooden guitar used in concert halls. He probably meant a classical guitar. Classical guitars produce a deeper, more elegant sound than folk guitars, but they use nylon strings and are harder to play. If classical guitars were more famous than standard acoustics, it meant instruments were likely viewed as tools only for formal recitals. Ending that train of thought, I asked the pedestrian one more question. Are instruments only used for recitals in Japan? What? Of course they're used in recitals. Where else would you use them? Are there things like bands? Bands? Oh, are you hurt? I don't have any band-aids on me. Ah, no, never mind. It seemed this wasn't just a world without rock. The very concept of a musical band didn't exist. Otherwise, there would be no reason to bring up bandages in the middle of a conversation about instruments. This is going to be a problem. To become a rock star in this world, I would have to be like the Beatles. It wasn't just about making good music. I would have to personally popularize the basic blueprint of a band, the harmony created by guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. Fine, let's do it. I have the sheet music for countless great songs in my head. Ding-ling. The clear chime of a bell welcomed me as I pushed open the door of an instrument shop. I had always loved visiting these places. Even when I was just a nameless session player, stepping into a shop and catching that dusty yet clean scent of wood made me feel like my identity as an artist was being validated. Excuse me, do you sell guitars here? Ah, yes. Of course we do. Is this what you're looking for? The shop owner seemed unusually excited, as if he hadn't seen a customer in ages. Do you have any guitars other than the nylon string ones used for recitals? Other guitars? Maybe a steel string guitar with 14 frets. Or one that uses electricity to produce sound. Ah. You must be majoring in an incredibly niche genre. Gwahahaha. Ah. I'm a bit unique. Fortunately, it seemed the instruments themselves existed. Was it really just the band format that was missing? I'd like an acoustic guitar, then. A Gibson would be even better. You really are a unique one. Gibson guitars have such a rough sound that only the most eccentric players use them. I'm a bit of a rough guy myself. Ah, yes. Understood. I've been having a headache because I couldn't sell this one anyway. I'll bring it right out. The guitar the owner brought out was a Gibson J45. It was a model that usually cost well over $4,000,000, representing the most standard Gibson sound. With its powerful projection and punchy resonance, it was perfect for creating a masculine, raw vibe. How much is this one? It usually goes for about 400,000 yen, but since it's just collecting dust, just give me 100,000 yen. Gwahahaha. For this precious thing. An acoustic guitar made by Gibson. It was destined for the scrap heap anyway. I only kept it because collecting instruments is a hobby of mine. I'll take it immediately. You take card, right? Card. This shop doesn't have a card reader. Ah, that's right. This was Japan in the early 2000s. Chapter 5, The Girl Suddenly Wanted to Know Love. 968 words. Love is the only sane and satisfactory answer to the problem of human existence. Eric Seligman from. Fortunately, there was a bank inside the campus, so I was able to withdraw enough cash to buy the guitar. My account balance was actually higher than I expected. To be honest, I wanted to buy an electric guitar, but right now, I'm basically unemployed in this world. In a place where bands don't even exist, I can't exactly make a living as a session musician either. Buying an electric guitar in this situation? That would be no different from choosing to live on the streets. But what can I even do with just one acoustic guitar? An acoustic guitar's sound is too thin to carry the energy of a band. Furthermore, in a world devoid of the very concept of a band, it would be nearly impossible to recruit members until I actually gain some level of fame. Then I guess busking is the only answer. Historically, the greatest musicians were born in the streets. And this place is a wasteland where popular music utilizing instruments is non-existent. In that case, I should show the people here what real music actually is. Music that sings of a sincerity, not a lies. Busking is essentially a small stage built on the pavement. What is the first thing an artist must decide when preparing a stage? It's the set list. A band's performance must have a sense of continuity from start to finish. That's why the set list, determining which songs to play before the performance even begins, is the crowning glory of any show. But this is Japan. And the only instrument I have at my disposal is this acoustic guitar. Songs with Japanese lyrics that can honestly express deep emotions through a guitar. These were quite difficult constraints for me. In my past life, I was a rock fanatic who devoured anything under the genre's umbrella, but I didn't listen to much J-pop. Even when I did, it was strictly band music. I wasn't very familiar with songs that could fill the entire soundscape with just an acoustic guitar. Should I translate Western songs into Japanese and sing them? After giving it some thought, I realized that wasn't a great choice either. Music reflects the environment and the spirit of the era in which it was created. Lyrics, in particular, lose their meaning if they aren't kept in their original form. If I tried to adapt Western songs into Japanese, the music would likely end up as a half-baked mess that was neither here nor there. In this case, I shouldn't worry about a narrative arc with a beginning, middle, and end. I should just build the stage around a single concept. That'll make it easier for the audience to get immersed. In the end, I decided to settle on one theme and sing songs that shared the same resonance. While such a set list can be monotonous since the songs are similar, it has the advantage of having a clear emotional line, making it easier for the audience to fall into the artist's world. It's also effective for delivering a specific message. Closing my thoughts, I set the guitar case down on the street with a heavy thud and began to take out the instrument. An artist holding a guitar. I bet you guys have never seen anything like this before, have you? There is a small girl wearing a hat on the street. With deep purple hair and black stars embedded in her eyes, she looks like someone who has let go of reality. As she wandered aimlessly through the streets as she usually did, she spotted a strange boy. A boy holding a guitar, singing his heart out with raw, honest emotion. To her, it was incomprehensible. Speaking one's true feelings so openly to a group of strangers. For her, someone who even forced herself to lie with a smile, it was something she simply couldn't fathom. But is it true that people are drawn to their opposites? She stopped her tracks for a moment and began to listen to the song. She thought to herself as she listened to the boy's voice. She wanted to hear more of his music. She didn't know why. She just wanted to keep listening. And so, the girl began to focus on the song. She remembered the mama who tormented her before ultimately abandoning her. In truth, mama was her enemy. But when even that mama disappeared and she was left alone in the world with nothing, she fell into a state of despair. Even so, she had to live. Because dying like this was too terrifying, and it felt too unfair. So she entered the orphanage and lived her life wearing a fake smile. Still, she lived without knowing the reason why she had to keep going. Since she had never received affection or love from anyone, only the emotions of hatred and disgust transmitted by her mother, she considered herself an empty vessel with nothing inside. The bonds between people are easily broken. Even if that bond is between family. Her papa had never existed since the day she was born, having abandoned her from the start. And her mama had left her behind and gone to prison. She thought of herself as a hollow person. Bright on the outside but inside, she was empty, cold and rotting away from neglected wounds. The girl couldn't understand the song. Nor could she understand the boy singing it. However, she found herself wanting to know. What exactly is this love that the boy speaks of? Could love truly fill her emptiness? And could that boy, who sings of love with such sincerity, teach her what it is? It was nothing more than a simple curiosity. Chapter 6, I just wanted to start a band, but I became a strange child's favorite. 910 words. If I truly love one person, I love all persons, I love the world, I love life. To be able to say to someone, I love you, is the same as saying, I love all people through you. I love the world through you. And through you, I love even myself. Eric Seligman from Amazarashi's Boku Jie Shinitu Amata no wa, The Reason I Thought I'd Die, can be called a truly rock and roll song. Ultimately, rock and roll is about expressing your emotions honestly, without a shred of shame. And it's the perfect song to use as a closing number for a performance. As I finished the song and looked around, one figure stood out among the crowd, a small girl in a hat, shedding tiny tears. She wore a hat pulled low and scruffy, stretched out clothes. With her purple hair, she looked strangely familiar. I had a premonition that if she grew up, she would become a staggering beauty. But was my performance really enough to make someone cry? However, seeing her appearance and expressionless face, neither of which suited her age, I figured she was a girl carrying her own set of burdens. Isn't it said that a great song pulls out the stories buried deep within the heart? I swear I've seen her somewhere before. She looks a bit like the model from that cover song. I stared intently at the girl's face, trying to sift through my memories. Then my eyes met her purple pupils, eyes that had stars embedded within them. Stars in her eyes. The moment our gaze met, the girl breathed light into those stars. She flashed a smile that felt somewhat artificial, and sent a calculated look my way. "Give me your phone number." "My favorite." "So what did you say your name was, little lady?" "Who are you calling a little lady?" "I have the name AI. Eyes containing stars and a smile that felt fabricated. Having spent a long time grinding as an E-class session musician, I could tell immediately that this girl, AI, was wearing a manufactured smile. A child trying to be deceptive, it's so obvious. To be honest, any casual observer could see she was faking her brightness. Of course, if she were to become a singer, she would likely become an incredible star. Unless someone had been in the industry for a very long time, those soul-capturing eyes of hers would thoroughly mask her artificial cheer. "So what do you want with me? If you've become a young fan, should I give you an autograph?" AI looked at the boy and slowly opened her mouth. "I don't need an autograph. I want to talk." "Talk about what? How can you speak from your heart on stage? First off, how old are you?" 13. To be perfectly honest, it wasn't pleasant watching a child force herself to act bright. A child should be the most radiant kind of star, the kind that shines brilliantly without worrying about what others think. For starters, why don't you stop forcing that cheerful act and just speak comfortably? This is me speaking comfortably. Usually, children who force a bright persona show two characteristics. First, they are defensive to hide their own wounds. Second, there is some form of lack within their hearts. In the end, even if humans look fine on the outside, everyone lives while harboring their own private illnesses. Having finished my thought, I matched my eye level with the young girl calling herself AI and spoke slowly. Because she was a child, she could learn many things. Even if she was wounded, it could heal, even if it left a scar. However, the prerequisite was that she had to struggle and fight. A bird that wants to fly must first break its world to break the egg. Speaking from the heart on stage isn't hard. You just have to feel it. Feel the sincere emotions that come while performing, surrender your body to those feelings, and enjoy yourself. If you wear a mask and force yourself to look bright like you are now, it will be hard to speak with sincerity during a performance. How did you know I was lying? Maybe just because I've lived longer than you. You only look 3 or 4 years older than me though. But as an artist, I've probably lived much longer. The boy grinning slyly in front of the girl didn't just seem older in years. It was as if he was telling her this. A lie is just a lie. His answer to her question was filled with self-conviction. Unlike herself, who was full of lies, he felt like a real star. AI could finally identify the emotion she was feeling toward him. She was hungering for the sincerity she felt from him. "From now on, you're my Oshi. Are you back from your little excursion?" It was the best. She wanted the honest, raw emotions he displayed, something she couldn't do herself. Because he looked like a true star, she wanted to reach out and touch him. Because AI is a greedy girl. "So what's my Oshi's name?" I was in trouble. I didn't even know my own Japanese name. And I couldn't exactly give her a Korean name. Wait, there's a fitting name, right? Just call me Hyde. It's my stage name. Chapter 7, I just wanted to start a band, but I think I've got a saying fan. 885 words. People are capable at any time in their lives of doing what they dream of. The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho. Ever since that day, I've had a stalker. Honestly, I don't know how she tracks me down, but the kid, shouldn't she be in school, follows me to every performance and even tags along long after the show is over. This isn't even a groupie situation anymore. If I keep hanging around a 13-year-old groupie, I won't become a rock star. I'll become a guest of the state in a prison cell. To be frank, having a brat like that around is a heavy burden. From our conversations, I realized AI was like a pristine sheet of white paper. Because she was hollow inside, she was a canvas that could be filled with any color at all. Normally, one should fill the colors of their own canvas themselves. Since one decides their own life, no one else can be the painter of that canvas. No one else should be. So what exactly is the reason you're following me? I told you, I'm AI. An idol from Bikomachi. And? If you're an idol, shouldn't you be more careful about your behavior? I doubt your agency would just let this slide. Ah. President Sato isn't that strict, so it's fine. Fine. So why is our little Miss Idol following me? You haven't told me yet. How to express sincerity on stage. I'm pretty sure I explained that to her last time, yet she keeps following me anyway. Tell me a concrete way. Concrete. I mean. Concrete, she says. I definitely explained it concretely. Multiple times, even. Have conviction in yourself, surrender your body to the emotions you feel, and enjoy the stage. Then, your emotions will naturally manifest during the performance. Where else could she find an explanation as concrete and detailed as that? I even gave in to her nagging and showed her on stage several times. What clearer expression of emotion is there than getting swept up in the heat of a street performance, eyes welling with tears, and smashing 100,000 yen electric guitar to pieces? The reason rock stars always had curses on their lips was probably because of groupies. I'd bet my 4 million yen Gibson J45 on it. I ended up falling to my knees on the pavement in frustration. I'm going to end up at a police station before I ever become a rock star. Seeing my reaction, AI began to laugh. Contrasting her laughter, a single tear trickled down my cheek. Escaping the gazes of passers-by who looked at me like I was some sort of criminal on the street, we resumed our conversation in a spot bathed in gentle sunlight. When I checked my documents at the government office earlier, it said I was 16. Has my face really withered that much? So, which part are you stuck on? Since AI is an idol, I have to go around delivering love. Well, that's true. Idols use that to build their marketability. Mid-sentence, I felt a gaze coming from the brat that was steeped in deep darkness. Hey, where did those stars in your eyes go? If you can't love the audience, why don't you just think of someone you do love? Someone I love. The girl's shoulders slumped, and she began to fidget with her fingers, hesitating. She looked like she was carefully picking her words. A hollow heart means she doesn't know the emotion called love. Which obviously means there's no one she loves. Realizing my mistake, I hurriedly spoke up. If there's no one you love, try thinking of someone you respect or a role model. Sometimes respect and affection share a similar wavelength. But AI doesn't understand the emotion of love. It's normal not to know at your age. To put it simply, love is participating in a relationship. It's giving affection to someone without depriving or sacrificing yourself, and finding happiness through them. If you want to be more specific, love is the emotion that allows you to give someone the thing most precious to you. I still don't get it even when you put it like that. I thought I explained it well. The fact that the brat still didn't understand was likely due to the void in her childhood. Once that void is filled and she finds some peace of mind, she'll surely understand. Then you teach me, hide. Love. Fine. I don't know what kind of void you have, but I'll help you solve it. Then maybe you'll stop following me around like this. Back at her dorm, AI opened her eyes and stared intensely at Hyde's phone number saved in her mobile. He had refused to give her his number several times, but for whatever reason, he had finally relented this time. A small smile played on her lips as she recalled the way he had sighed deeply, gulped down his coffee, took her phone to save the number, and then handed it back with trembling hands. But why does he avoid me so much? The question crossed her mind, but AI brushed it aside and shouted with an uncharacteristic amount of genuine emotion. Anyway, I feel great. Chapter 8, Side Story, Why AI Hoshino Started Chasing a Rock Freak. 839 words. You will find yourself more immersed in this text if you listen to canon rock while reading. The most exhilarating part of a performance is the moment right before it begins, the time spent choosing which song to play. In my past life, I lived a wretched existence because of the guitar and died leaving nothing behind. Even so, the guitar is my entire life. It is the engine behind everything I do. I'm the kind of rock freak who would choose to die doing rock music even if I were killed for it 100 times over. And so, without a single thought for the consequences, I went ahead and splurged on an electric guitar. A ridiculously expensive one at that. Before starting the set, I connected the guitar to the amp. To be honest, while skill is paramount, the quality of your gear makes a massive difference when it comes to electric guitars. Fundamentally, an electric guitar is an instrument that converts electrical signals into sound. Therefore, the tone is heavily influenced by effectors that manipulate those signals and the amplifier that boosts them. Zizzing. Some people hate this kind of grit, but I love a sound soaked in heavy gain. Isn't the romance of rock found in that raw, abrasive noise? It's my personal philosophy that any guitarist who pursues a crystalline clean tone even during a solo, let alone an ensemble, cannot be called a true guitarist. A great guitarist is one who knows how to master the noise. Actually, there was one problem after my reincarnation. The grip strength that every guitarist must possess had become far too weak. Usually, guitarists keep a hand gripper at home. However, my hands after reincarnation were pale and soft, without a single callus. That was the real reason I bought an acoustic guitar as my first instrument in this world. Acoustic strings are thicker than electric ones, making them far more useful for building the hands of a proper guitarist. I loosen up by running through some scales before attempting a few strokes. A jagged roar, saturated with gain, echoes out. Now this is a guitar. This soul. This electric thrill that an acoustic just can't replicate. I had spent most of my previous life suppressing these urges as a session musician, but deep down, I've always preferred soloing. For a guitar solo, this has to be the opening track. Canon. The perfect song to warm up the fingers. Canon Rock was a track rearranged by a Taiwanese guitarist around 2005 in my previous world. It's a piece that beginners find impossible to even attempt, but for guitarists, it's a brilliant way to showcase technical virtuosity. While anyone with a bit of skill can technically play it, the canon, played by a real guitarist, exists on a completely different level of quality. Alright, the first piece I'll be playing for you is canon. Huh? That thing we listened to in school music class. But you've never heard it on an electric, right? And this is a rearrangement, so it'll feel fresh. I'm going to show you all the true thrill of the guitar. Since practically everyone and their mother tries to play it, many think it's easy. But the original is a beast performed at 200 BPM, demanding every high-level technique in the book. Its quality fluctuates wildly depending on the guitarist's caliber. And though I was only an E-class sessionman, I am a guitarist who dedicated his entire life to this instrument. Above all, I am likely one of the best guitarists in this entire world. With a growling hum, the raw, distorted notes of canon begin to resonate. I start the performance naturally, matching the blistering 200 BPM pace. Canon is a song I can play with my eyes closed. If a guitarist wants to earn their keep, they need to be able to play canon in their sleep. I grip the pick short, incorporating palm mutes and intentional noise intermittently. The texture and bite of canon are decided in these details. I am a master of these nuances. In fact, E-class players tend to be more proficient in these small tricks. Even if you lack the genius for raw speed, the ability to control the vibration of the strings is something you can gain through blood, sweat, and calloused fingers. The guitar begins to scream with high-pitched, punchy resonance. Bravo! I had no idea a guitar could sound like that. Ah, this is the real deal. This is rock and roll. As I thought, my guitar is my true partner. I'm married to this guitar. And at that moment, his eyes were filled with brilliantly shining stars. Standing a short distance away from the busking spot, a girl with purple hair also begins to clap. So that's what a stage filled with sincerity looks like. I wonder if I can ever enjoy the stage like that. As she thought, Hyde was truly her Oshi. And she was the world's greediest girl. Chapter 9, I just wanted to start a band and finally, I'm gathering band members. 955 words. Months have passed since I gave Hoshino my phone number. The biggest change since then was the sudden acquisition of a human alarm clock. Specifically, a morning alarm that flies into my inbox at the exact same time every single day. AI Hoshino. The star has arrived. Despite her appearance, she's a diligent brat, or perhaps just bizarre, sending the same weird greeting at the same time every morning. It feels a bit like obsession, it's actually kind of creepy. Hyde. The star has departed. There is a legendary quote left behind by Liam Gallagher, the frontman of Oasis. I go my own F***king way. At first, AI used to get absolutely livid at my rebellious responses, but she seems to have adjusted now, continuing to talk about herself at her own pace. That's another thing that's changed. Another shift is that the cynical edge hidden behind her smile has softened significantly. In the past, it felt like she was forcing herself to be artificially bright, but lately, she just feels genuinely bright. It's a look children her age should naturally have, which makes me happy, but being around her for too long still feels like she's draining my soul. But truthfully, the biggest problem is that I still haven't managed to form a band. I definitely thought I had built up quite a bit of recognition over the last few months. In a place devoid of popular music involving actual instruments, I had provided a fresh shock to the system. I'd even put on performances intense enough to get hauled off to the police station, like setting my guitar on fire in the middle of the street, just as Jimi Hendrix once did. The issue is that it's impossible to become a legend through solo effort alone. Legendary bands were great because they were a convergence of genius talents. The music world isn't soft enough for one person to reach the top in isolation. And my talent lies in vocals and songwriting. While I'm a guitar player, my technical skill back in my previous life wasn't exactly world-class. However, my head is filled with countless masterpieces, and I possess a vocal tone that is the spitting image of Kurt Cobain's. Regardless of that, I can't recreate those masterpieces on my own. They can only be truly realized in the form of a band. That classic harmony of vocals, guitar, bass, and drums. So the conclusion is this. To become a rock star, I have to move. Oh, and I only recently realized that those with stars in their eyes are the ones with maxed out talent in their respective fields. I threw on my clothes and stepped out the front door. Guitar, bass, drums, vocals. The classics are classics for a reason. This is my definitive vision of a band. The format that emerged during the era of Elvis Presley and was perfected by the Beatles. I was always old school, even in my past life. The place I arrived at was the campus of a certain university. In this world, instruments are a rarity handled only by music majors. Therefore, true instrumentalists can only be found at universities where music is studied professionally. Rough diamonds exist everywhere. Even though in the modern era, particularly in Korea where interest in rock was scarce, countless gems remained buried. And above all, in Korea, rock was treated merely as a commodity. A strictly calculated product accompanied by agencies, media, and massive marketing budgets. They're all so mediocre. In a band, no single member should stand out excessively. Even if the level of public attention differs, their skill levels should be similar. At the very least, their talent must be undeniable. Half-baked amateurs won't do. You can't become the best with mediocre people. But life never quite goes the way you want it to. AI Hoshino. Are you at school again today? Indeed. Over 2 weeks had passed, and I still hadn't found a single band member. Those with the will lacked talent, and those with talent had no interest in music. Since the very concept of a band was something being attempted for the first time, some even reacted with sheer bewilderment. I'm sorry, but I just don't see a future in this. It sounds too much like a daydream. Let's say we do organize this orchestra-type thing you're talking about. Does it actually make money? How will we perform, and how would you handle marketing or PR? Just thinking back on it makes me sigh. I haven't caught a single person in my net. So what if I've gained a bit of recognition? This is a world where agencies have a complete stranglehold on the music industry. In the eyes of others, I'm just an aspiring singer with a bit of talent. Reality is always bitter. Hide. Still searching for comrades to share the rock and roll with. Wait, what's with that guy? He was a man with massive muscles holding drumsticks. And he had stars in his eyes. He looked to be of mixed black heritage. Actually, that's even better. As a rule, muscular guys are great at the drums. Since it's a part that requires intense movement, immense power and stamina are essential. I'm Hyde. You can find my profile online. Would you like to play some real music with me? This guy is the real deal. A level of talent that was hard to find even in my previous life. Hyde. I think I found it. A true, genuine talent. Chapter 10. I just wanted to start a band but I need to get recognition. 487 words. Sorry, but I'm a student. I can't really afford to just jump into something like this, man. The muscular man with dark skin shook his head. To be honest, I wanted to tell him to drop out of school right now and join me, but unfortunately, I didn't have the money to back up such a demand. The music industry isn't a place that treats you kindly enough to guarantee a future with zero capital. Then please, at least take my number. You might change your mind later. Oh, I can do that much. I walked out of the campus feeling empty. I had spotted a magnificent rough diamond, yet I couldn't recruit him. As it stood, I was just a penniless band hopeful, no different from my previous life. Since I had been transported across space and time to a place where I had no connections, it wasn't as if I could easily gather like-minded people through my old networks. I stepped onto the dark street alone. It was only 8 o'clock, the sun had just barely finished setting, but the sky was as dark as my current mood. I need to recruit band members. But how? AI Hoshino. Got rejected again today. How did she know I failed again today? Just as that question crossed my mind, a girl with flowing purple hair gently tapped my shoulder from behind. Look who's here. Ah, it's you. AI is here, so why the dull reaction? I failed again today. The brat then gave me a look of pity, her eyes softening with sympathy. Hey, did you even know how to make an expression like that? AI thinks maybe your method is wrong. Method. For a split second, a flash of senior pride crossed AI's face before she began to speak. Even if I look like this, AI is quite the popular star in Bikomachi, you know. In the entertainment industry, recognition is everything. You seem to treat them as two separate things, Hyde, but the way I see it, there's no difference between the music world and showbiz. Hearing those words felt like being struck with a hammer. She was right. This was a world where band music was non-existent, and in such a world, pure musicality might not be the most important factor. In a world where the music industry and the entertainment industry were synonymous, fame and public awareness would naturally be the highest values. First, I need to raise my profile. I need more recognition. But didn't the stars of the 2020s increase their recognition through internet broadcasting? If I recall correctly, internet broadcasting existed in the 2000s as well. It would be incredible if there was something like a street karaoke stage or something similar. This actually exists. And it's quite popular too. Get ready. Showbiz is about to be turned upside down. Chapter 11. I just wanted to start a band, but I ended up on street karaoke. 888 words. Unfortunately, live streaming was still in a primitive state, so it couldn't be used to build a following yet. However, a format known as street karaoke was already being produced by a certain broadcasting station. As computers were being formally introduced into the industry, this format was credited with saving a cable station in the Kanto region from the brink of shutting down, leading it into its golden age. To summarize the program, it was a viewer participation show that scouted pedestrians on the spot to sing. The host's humorous banter was said to be top tier. Above all, the core appeal that drew everyone's attention was the chance for an ordinary person to showcase their singing talent on a national broadcast. With minimal production costs outside of music royalties, and a high potential for generating viral noise marketing, it was an incredibly profitable venture for the station. And I intended to appear on that program. If you think you're the best singer here, you're always welcome. Normally, a sea of hands would have shot up, but today, the crowd seemed to hesitate. The opportunity is finally here. How much patient endurance had I shown just for this moment? I had spent weeks checking the broadcast schedule and trailing their filming locations. Is there no one? Not a single person who feels they could absolutely tear this stage apart. May I give it a try? The host caught sight of a blonde young man with a solid, athletic build raising his hand, and let out a thin smile. We caught a big fish for this week's episode. The young man introduced himself with a calm composure. Popular music using instruments. Yes, that's right. I've been busking at the same time and place every day. Ooh. The host skillfully led the conversation. It would be perfect if I could land a joke here. Which is why I'm currently grinding away in the underground scene. Haha. It seemed my time busking wasn't in vain. The young man knew exactly how to play into the flow of the broadcast. So, do you have any final words before you start your song? I'm recruiting band members. I'm looking for musicians to make music with me. Something like an orchestra or a musical troupe. A bit different from that. I'm not really one for static, seated performances. The crowd looked at the handsome blonde youth with growing anticipation. Just how good was his singing? Wrapping up the intro, the host handed over the microphone and gave a cue sign to the PD behind the camera. Suddenly, the audio equipment hummed to life with a low electronic buzz. What song will you be singing? A song called Astronauts. Oh, and is it alright if I play the guitar along with it? Of course. In my previous life, Astronauts was a song posted in 2011 that became quite a hit. It seemed to have appeared a bit earlier in this world, but without the synthesized electronic elements woven in, it felt a bit bland here. But I can provide that electric sound myself. The host's eyes widened the moment he heard the vocals. He had heard countless singers since taking charge of this program, but this was a style he had never encountered before. The young man's voice was clear, yet it wasn't merely pure. Before the song truly kicked in, the rough, chugging sound of a gritty drive-tone guitar resonated through the street. A rock star lives on the love of their fans. A true rock star must know how to bask in the cheers. The song surged toward the highlight. In the original version, the melody drops for a transition here, but I took it high. Because high notes are the essence of rock and roll. What the hell was that? That's insane. How can a human voice make a sound like that? Astronauts is a song where the atmosphere is everything. This meant the entire character of the piece changed depending on the vocalist's unique traits. And I possessed the ability to transform this song into my own color. As the crowd erupted, a surge of raw electricity began to fill my entire body. They say when dopamine floods your system, you feel like you're floating. That was exactly how I felt right now. Abandoning myself to the raw emotion dictated by instinct, I carried the song forward. In that moment, a brilliant star was shining in his eyes. Truly, he was the favorite rocker of the Oshi no Ko. The song ended and the street fell silent. Amidst the heavy stillness, a single spectator began to clap, followed by a delayed wave of applause that crashed over me. I need to do the final recruitment pitch. I'm looking for people to join me. I'll leave my contact information here, so if you want to start a band with me, please get in touch. Once the broadcast aired, my phone exploded with activity. AI Hoshino. I barely managed to get that number for myself. Hashtag. Just you wait until I get home. / The sight of AI fuming because I had revealed my number, which she had worked so hard to get, to the anonymous public remained my little secret. Chapter 12. I just wanted to start a band and finally, I've formed the band. 700 words. After the broadcast aired, I became quite famous. Before appearing on the show, I was just one of those people you'd scroll past on the internet. Now, it feels like I've actually etched my existence into the public's consciousness, even if just a little. I felt it most acutely through requests for autographs. I can sell this later if you get famous, right? To think I'd be signing autographs, the very thing rock stars leave in their wake. Giving out an autograph for the first time in my life made me feel like I'd taken a genuine step toward my dream. Of course, no one had actually stepped forward to join the band yet. But that's fine. I only need to fish out a few real deals. If seeing that performance didn't make your blood boil, you couldn't call yourself an artist. And my prediction turned out to be spot on. I received a call from that muscular, mixed-race drummer who had initially rejected me on campus. Hey, Mun. Let's give that band thingy a shot. It's going to be tough. Players have always had a hard life. So what exactly is this band anyway? A story about those who have nothing, coming to possess everything in the world. At its core, rock is the story of the underdog seizing everything this world has to offer. The next day, I met the drummer, Yokishi. I saw what you did on TV, Mun. You're perfect on your own, so why are you trying to do more? He had stars etched into his eyes. Seeing a muscular black man and hearing Japanese come out was such an imbalance. But honestly, it's for the better. A band's chances of success increase when it's overflowing with unique personalities. With a powerhouse of muscle holding down the center from behind, imagine how striking that visual would be. Besides, rock is a genre rooted in gospel and blues, music born from the black community. I'm going to add talent upon talent. Oh. That sounds good to the ear. But there's a problem. This sounds like some sort of orchestra concept, but I'm barely scraping by as it is. I have a family to support. Practicing together in your spare time will be enough. Thanks for being considerate, Mun. Oh, and if we're doing popular music as a group, what are we doing about songwriting and lyrics? It was great to hear him express interest in the creative process. Band members aren't just machines that play instruments on a stage. To become a great band, the members must have a hunger to dye the band in their own colors. Even if that desire is strong enough to eventually break the band apart. In real-world terms, Yokishi's playing style leaned toward heavy metal. While he lacked a certain oily, bluesy feel, he pursued powerful, technically precise polyrhythms. In short, he was a drummer who excelled at utilizing offbeats. I like this kind of rough style. What about you? I'm omnivorous. My style is being able to execute every style to a certain degree, even if it's not perfect. If you put it nicely, it's versatile. If you put it harshly, I lack a bit of individual personality. How long had it been since I'd talked music like this? It was virtually the first time I'd talked music since coming to this world. We talked until the sun went down. We even ignored the countless notifications and calls that were making my phone run hot. It seemed there were more than a few instrument junkies whose blood had started to boil. Now, I'd actually have to consider holding interviews. I just wanted to start a band and finally, I was in a position to form one. Oh, and the bassist is a man with a head so bald it gleams. His presence is certainly unmistakable. But AI, why are you here at our first rehearsal? AI Hoshino. Is it okay if I come watch? AI hasn't learned how to show her sincerity on stage yet. It's fine to send a text, but does it really count if you only send it after you've already arrived? Chapter 13. I just wanted to start a band, but the first rehearsal is already a mess. 897 words. Ai Hoshino. The center of a Bikomachi, and a young brat possessing the talent of a brilliantly shining star. What kind of person is she? She is someone who has never been loved by anyone since the day she was born, nor has she ever loved anyone herself. Precisely because she had nothing, Ai Hoshino is a girl whose heart has failed to grow alongside her body, leaving her with a longing more intense than anyone else's. Because her heart remains stunted, she cannot even accurately perceive her own emotions. Having never been on the receiving end of someone else's feelings, she is unable to distinguish between love and friendship. Lacking confidence in her own heart, even the act of truly liking someone was an impossible feat for her. That is why she craves love. She wanted to try loving because she didn't know what it was. She wanted to love because she didn't even know how to give it. One could say the very reason she became an idol was love. She thought that if she kept shouting about it, maybe someday, she would be able to do it for real. So as an idol, she shouted lies of love and believed there was no truth in her life. She thought she would live and die that way forever. Until she met that young man who, like a fool, was hell-bent on setting his guitar on fire. A man several years older than her. A man whose eyes shine with stars like a little boy's whenever rock is mentioned, no matter how much he likes it. Yet, when it comes to dealing with people, he is more sincere than anyone. He is a man who always honestly reveals his joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure to others, never feeling ashamed of who he is. That man, who always speaks with sincerity, gave her the feeling that he was filling her void. That is how he became her favorite, her Oshi. The moment she heard he was having a rehearsal, she rushed over. She was curious about this thing called a band that he shouted about so much, and whenever she met him, a soft, fuzzy sense of elation swelled in her chest. In truth, observing the rehearsal was just an excuse. Ai has been bored lately. It's Hyde's fault for not playing with me. So she waited until she arrived before sending the text. Ai Hoshino. It's okay if I come to watch, right? Ai hasn't learned how to show sincerity on stage yet, after all. At my sudden appearance, he fell to his knees and clutched his head, crying out in despair. To her that sight was nothing but fun. Pfft. Unable to hold back her laughter, she burst out in a grand fit of giggles by his side. Whenever she's with him, she feels a bit more mischievous than usual. Does it even mean anything if you send the text after you've already arrived? But I did give you notice, didn't I? Having successfully flustered him, she shoots him a devious, bratty smile with triumphant eyes. In moments like these, she feels that mysterious, soft emotion toward him. He never got angry, no matter what kind of pranks she pulled. To her, someone who lived in a cycle of violence for the most trivial reasons every single day, his warmth was incredibly precious. Though fatigue weighed on her because she had cut back on sleep just to keep up with him, her eyes were filled with starlight and curiosity. When she was with him, the exhaustion vanished. He was a man worth observing just for the fun of it. Then let's head in. Isn't that my line? As the two of them entered the rehearsal room, their pinky fingers were grazing each other. Though the man didn't seem to give it a single thought. Hey, man. Who's the kid? My Seeing fan. Iya. Sai. To be precise, she's a currently active idol. Oh. Just keep me out of any dating scandals. Watching the two youngsters mess around, a dark-skinned, muscular man size, his massive biceps and triceps on full display. Well, it seems like a complicated relationship, but as long as she doesn't interfere with the rehearsal. Then, with a twang of a string, a bald man carrying a bass guitar appeared. The reason he was bald was that he was a perfectionist. The shiny-headed bassist pursued nothing but perfection. He had shaved everything off specifically because he was worried that a single strand of hair might fall and affect the vibration of the strings during a performance. Calling it obsessive-compulsive disorder might be a stretch, but during their first meeting, he was the man who said, "Good and great are always a hair's breadth apart, and I only ever pursue great. A performance must always be perfect." He believed that if it wasn't the absolute best show, it was better not to play at all. True to that personality, the bald bassist glared at AI and spoke. "Hey, kid. If you disturb the rehearsal, I'm kicking you out immediately. I'm only putting up with you because the leader brought you." Hyde sighed at the sight. "I was the one who gathered them, but is this band really going to be okay?" Chapter 14. I just wanted to start a band, but I ended up playing Love on my guitar. 970 words. If you listen to Eric Clapton's Layla while reading, you'll be able to immerse yourself deeper into the story. So, what's with this brat? The leader? A bald young man holding a bass asks me, his tone thick with irritation. An active idol. And a very close acquaintance of mine. Is it okay to bring a girl to our very first rehearsal? I get you're at that age where the blood runs hot, but still. Oh? Did I not mention my age? The girl you're glaring at is 13. An active idol. 13 years old. Upon hearing this, beads of sweat form on the bald man's scalp. He suddenly looks lost, clearly frazzled by the fact that he was acting hostile toward a child. Wait, man, you're 16. This is a complete ragtag crew, isn't it? Among instrumentalists, your skill is your age. Still, 16 is a bit. The university students look anxious, realizing they were recruited by someone much younger than them. But the world of musicians doesn't operate on seniority, it's all about the hierarchy of talent. If you're good enough, they'll call you sir regardless of age. In that sense, I feel like I need to crush their egos a bit. Eric Clapton's Layla. It's a song composed by Eric Clapton specifically to woo the wife of his friend, George Harrison. It carries one of the messiest backstories in rock history. George Harrison's wife, Pattie Boyd, ignored by her husband, tried to make him jealous and inadvertently ended up seducing Eric Clapton, resulting in this song. To put it bluntly, it's a song Clapton wrote to pull off an NTR on his best friend. Meanwhile, George Harrison was busy making moves on another friend's wife, Ringo Starr's to be exact. Musically, this track lacks flashy technique, but it's perfect for showcasing a guitarist's ability to dial in a tone. The guitar solo, seemingly designed to steal another man's wife, is legendary among guitar nerds. While it isn't ideal for a pure technical flex, technicality usually fails to move anyone who isn't a fellow gearhead anyway. To the average listener, speed only elicits a mild, "Oh, his hands move pretty fast." I plugged the cable into the amp and adjusted the guitar's tone. The truth is, even the original artist, Eric Clapton, plays this song with various different tones. If the creator plays it however he wants, it shouldn't matter if I do the same, right? Instead of half-heartedly mimicking his tone, I plan to play it with my own style. And I won't play the original version, I'm going for a rearranged version where the guitar is much more intrusive. Since the original is a vocal track, playing it straight as an instrumental can feel hollow. I play a bit faster than the original, utilizing a heavy, growling overdrive. An ear-piercing guitar wail resonates throughout the rehearsal studio. If you strip the vocals and play only the accompaniment, the song loses its bite and becomes flat. This is because Layla is driven primarily by vocals until the melodic part signaled by the piano coda begins. To fill that void, I chose a thick overdrive tone. Singing with the guitar instead of a voice. That is the purpose of my performance. If I show them this level of skill, they won't try to look down on me. I might have been an E-rank session player, but I was always strong when it came to these kinds of tricks. With the buzzing hum of the guitar, the vocal part begins. There are no lyrics, yet the imagery is vivid. Masterpieces are masterpieces for a reason. I've never heard this song before. Did he write this? I continue playing, channeling the emotions Eric Clapton must have felt when he composed this. The friend and the friend's wife. Two people drifting apart due to George Harrison's infidelity. And Eric Clapton, watching it all unfold. Clapton begins his courtship, fueled by an emotion that could be either possessiveness or pity. Even though she was his friend's wife. Like this, love paralyzes human reason. The pre-recorded drum, bass, and backing guitar tracks roar. I loved this song most in my previous life. Despite the scandalous background, where else can you find a love song this desperate? The image of a person kneeling down, pleading with their crush, comes to mind. Telling them that unlike that person, I will never hurt you. Promising to devote an entire life to that one person alone. Eric Clapton likely had those thoughts while creating this masterpiece. As the melodic lines replacing the vocals end, the atmosphere of the song begins to shift. This is where the piano coda usually pivots the mood. The mood changes, but the core imagery remains. The rocky edge subsides, transitioning into a lyrical, soulful sound. I had a lover in my past life too. The kind of lover where, because we had no money, we shared pieces of hotdog on Christmas instead of a common cake. I remember her paying the bill, while I stood there agonizing over a few measly cents. That was my previous life. A life I couldn't have endured without a blind, stubborn self-conviction that I would eventually succeed. It's not technical, nor is it a high-speed shred that shocks the listener, but I melt my experience into every single note. The kind of sentiment that only someone who has tasted nothing but failure can produce. With a final thud of the drums, the music draws to a close. There are no longer any band members questioning me. Applause echoes throughout the rehearsal studio. I finish the performance and look around, only to see the purple-haired girl's face drenched in tears. But AI, why are you crying? Chapter 15, Side Story, When You Smile, I Feel Good, Too. 496 words. Why did she shed those tears? The reason was that emotion called love. Craving love but not knowing its shape, she wanted to try it, not knowing how to give it, she longed for it even more. To her, lies were synonymous with love, for she had spent her life shouting of love through a facade. And she did so because she truly did not understand it. She was terrified that her "I love you" was a hollow lie. She called her own love a thing made of falsehoods, but in truth, not a single one of her lies contained a drop of deception. She simply didn't know what love was. But now she felt as though she finally understood. It was an exchange of emotions. She realized that love was something forged through the act of mutual giving and receiving. Yet, the moment she understood, a sudden fear took hold. Even if she gave love, what if the love returned by the one who cherished her wasn't truth? Having lived her entire life as a liar, she understood better than anyone how deeply a human being could deceive another. She was afraid. However, she knew that if she didn't stop hiding behind those defensive lies, nothing would change, even if she did understand love. Would that man, who always spoke the truth, leave her if he ever saw her unsightly or dark parts? Could he stay by her side like this even if he knew the real her, a girl woven from lies? That was why she had wept upon hearing his performance. It felt like music that would embrace her, no matter what shameful secrets she harbored. Through his music, she believed she had received love from him. Could he be the one to make me sincere? I brought some tissues and wiped the tears from her face, speaking with a playful smirk. If you cry, Santa won't bring you a present this Christmas, you know. AI isn't a little kid who falls for that kind of thing. Sure. I believe you. She could be a handful at times, but from my perspective, having lived well into my 30s in my previous life, the antics of a 13-year-old child were easy to dismiss as cute. To be honest, she felt like a daughter I had gained later in life. Seeing her so much brighter than when we first met filled me with a poignant sense of pride. Conversely, whenever she suffered due to her own nature, I felt the same heartache one feels for their own child. I'll buy you ice cream after rehearsal. Your favorite, Haagen-Dazs. Really? You mean it? Yeah. Can I get more than one? Seeing how quickly her mood shifted, where had that pitiful, sobbing kid gone? I let out a faint, amused chuckle. Does she really love Haagen-Dazs that much? Regardless, seeing her happy again filled me with satisfaction. When you smile, I feel good too. Chapter 16. I just wanted to start a band and finally, we had our first rehearsal. 623 words. Since I had already proven my skills to the band members, it was now their turn to prove theirs to me. What song would require immense technique across all parts while demanding perfect harmony between everyone? Naturally, the genre had to be heavy metal, something that pushed instruments to their absolute limits, and it needed to be a track where synchronization was key. But did such a song exist? Ah, this should work. The song I chose was Children of the Night, released in 1987 by the band Whitesnake. The sound was already etched into my brain. As long as I could jot down the tablature and standard sheet music for them, we could dive into the rehearsal immediately. Just wait a second. I'll get the song for us to play. Hey man. What do you mean? You're getting a song to play. Music isn't usually made that easily, you know. What are you talking about, leader? Their jaws dropped when I returned just 20 minutes later with the completed sheet music. Any decent gearhead can look at a score and tell exactly what kind of sound it will produce. Looking at the notes, the two of them instinctively knew, if they could pull this off, it would be legendary. And when it comes to music, true players always let their actions speak louder than their words. Hey man, let's play this right now. Leader, we're doing this immediately, right? Exactly. This band was made of nothing but pure, obsessive musicians. Whitesnake was formed by David Coverdale, the vocalist of Deep Purple, after his departure from the group. Despite being practically chased out of Deep Purple, he went on to become a legend with this band instead. Children of the Night is a track that perfectly showcases Coverdale's vocal prowess, characterized by a refreshingly powerful and driving sound. The track exploded into life with a screaming electric guitar riff. As I gripped the guitar and began to sing, the solid foundation of the bass and drums anchored my vocals with absolute stability. I turned my back and looked at the members. I couldn't observe every detail since I was focused on the guitar and vocals, but I could tell they were both genuinely enjoying themselves. Of course, the bald bassist, who always chased perfection, seemed momentarily flustered by the breakneck tempo, but it didn't seem like a negative kind of surprise. The drums and bass bolstered me. Their raw yet precise sound breathed a straightforward, exhilarating energy into the song. This was a sound I could never have achieved alone. As the song reached its peak, I increased the speed of my fretting hand. This was the part where I could let loose. Like a stallion breaking into a gallop, the guitar tone surged past my vocals and raced forward. I poured the sheer catharsis I was feeling into the performance. I was the one who gathered them, but man, I really loved this band. It is always a joy to make music with such exceptional players. I finished the final section with a piercing, glass-shattering high note, as if I intended to blow the roof off the rehearsal studio. After all, isn't rock and roll vocals all about those high notes? By my own estimation, the first rehearsal was a success. A massive one, at that. Even though it was our first time locking in, it was a flawless performance with not a single beat out of place. As we finished the set, the three of us locked eyes, conveying our thoughts through our gaze alone. This guy's actually good. Musicians have a way of growing closer through their craft. Without saying a word, we could already feel the mutual respect vibrating between us. Chapter 17. I just wanted to start a band, but it's already a mess even after the rehearsal. 996 words. After hearing the rehearsal, she finally understood why he had been clamoring so much about starting a band. The girl with the violet hair watched their ensemble with eyes that sparkled. Unlike when she stood on stage, they looked incredibly happy. In contrast to her own performances, which were woven with lies, their playing was filled with nothing but the sincerity of enjoyment and happiness. Even though they were virtually strangers, they shared their sincerity with one another. Because of that, their performance radiated a brilliance that her own stage could never hope to match. However, to a coward and a liar like her, it was something incomprehensible. At the same time, she began to crave it even more. Watching the man playing the guitar, and seeing the honest, unadorned sincerity he exuded while performing, she felt her admiration for him deepen. Is this what they call longing? Yet, it felt like a sentiment far stickier and heavier than mere longing. The girl named AI could not take her eyes off the boy named Hyde. She wanted to be with him just a little bit longer. What's up? AI, you're frozen. Are you okay? You're not going to collapse and start sobbing again, are you? I might have cried a little, but AI has never sobbed like that. Hashtag. Thinking about it, she realized she was always happy when she was with him. Perhaps it would be okay to keep him by her side. That thought suddenly flickered through her mind. On that hot midsummer day, a girl realized she might have truly, sincerely fallen for someone. What is the very first thing you should do after gathering band members? Some might say you should share a drink to build brotherhood, or talk about music all night to burn with passion, but in my opinion, the first order of business is discussing how to handle expenses and profits. No matter how strong the bond in a band, if there's trouble with the distribution of income, it will crumble like a sandcastle and disband. I saw countless bands fall apart that way in my past life. I'll take full responsibility for the costs of the rehearsal space. As college students, you'll probably only be working part-time, so your income won't be that high anyway. Of course, the money hurt, but for musicians of their caliber, it was an investment worth making. To begin with, if I were the same me from my previous life, I never could have recruited such talented individuals. Common sense dictates, why would a talented rough diamond trust a guitarist who has achieved nothing but aging, and join his band? They absolutely wouldn't. Oh, by the way, don't you two still not know each other's names? Leader, what's this big guy's name? I'm a little scared he's gonna crack my skull open. Hey, man, don't call me big guy, call me Yokishi. As the muscular Yokishi held his drumsticks and glared at the bald bassist, the bassist's shoulders slumped. Perfectionists often have strong spirits, but this bald bassist was quite the coward when it didn't involve music. He definitely wasn't shrinking because of those massive, bulging muscles. What's the matter, man? It's not like I'm going to eat you. Hyungnim. I think anyone would feel that way looking at those arms. Well, I guess that's fair. So what's your name? I can't keep calling you Baldy forever. Tanaka Shuji. That's my name. Now that the introductions were mostly out of the way, it was time to get back to business. I pulled out the contract I had drafted beforehand. The profit sharing was simple. Earnings from individual activities belong entirely to the individual, while group activity profits are split equally among us. However, I added a clause stating that copyright royalties for a song are fully delegated to the creator. If the lyricist and composer are different, they split that income 50-50ths. I included this to give the members a condition that would make them eager to participate in the creative process. After a moment of silence while examining the contract, the bald bassist raised his hand. Leader, the profit part seems fine, but how about adding a clause that says before releasing an album, everyone presents what they've composed and we decide which tracks to include together? Oh. Baldy, that's a surprisingly good idea. Yokishi, the muscular drummer, seemed to have decided to just keep calling the bassist Baldy. To be honest, it was a fact that Baldy rolled off the tongue much easier than Shuji. We're a band. Forming a band means we've become one body. Since they didn't know the concept of a band well yet, they might not empathize with those words, but they would understand eventually through our activities. More than just making music together, band members are entities that share the joys and sorrows of success. Besides, if you get buried in just one style, you stagnate. Once a musician stops challenging themselves, they end up just repeating their own patterns. Countless bands have fallen that way. Even if they don't collapse completely, they lose their passion and desire, slowly sinking while reminiscing about their past peak. Then that settles the contract. The two nodded with satisfied smiles. But Yokishi, why are you nodding while rubbing the bassist's head? So what's the next plan, leader? I pulled a poster from my coat. It was a poster for an audition program created by TV Tokyo called Asayan. The next plan is to show those fakes what real music looks like. As a side note, on our way back that day, I was absolutely horrified by AI, who managed to devour 5 pints of Häagen-Dazs on the spot. She even bought 10 more to take home. She gave me a thumbs up with a look of pure bliss on her face. And naturally, not a single 10-yen coin remained in my wallet that day. Goodbye, my money. Chapter 18, Side Story, Enfant Terribles. 831 words. TV Tokyo's Asayan was a flagship program that premiered in 1995. It was a survival audition show with various concepts, including dance, fashion, and acting. The segment that truly solidified Asayan's status as a legendary program was the female vocalist audition. After a group formed from that audition's finalists became a massive hit, Asayan transformed into a fierce battlefield where top agencies like Amuse, Horrorpro, and Johnny's staked their pride on launching their own idol groups. In my previous life, I remember the show falling into a slump and ending around 2002. However, in this world, it has become Japan's representative audition program, a stage where major agencies clash in high-stakes rivalries, churning out countless stars and maintaining its status as the nation's premier talent hunt. And why do I know all this? Because the 2001 winner of this show visited Korea for the 2002 World Cup opening ceremony. That's right, in my previous life, I was an old geezer well over 30. Wait, man, you're saying we should go on Asayan? Yokishi spoke with a bewildered, flustered expression. The dark-skinned drummer came from a biracial family and had endured countless hardships because of the color of his skin. He had built his physique to ensure no one could look down on him. He had taken up music because the drums were the only hobby his father had taught him, a father who had left his mother to serve and eventually die in the 1990 Gulf War. While the world praised the Gulf War for its low casualty count of only 292 soldiers, to Yokishi, it was nothing more than a deep scar that taught him the agonizing reality of conflict. I'm telling you from experience. With my skin color, I'll be disqualified at the preliminary rounds. Look, I was the one who found you. In the world of musicians, you prove who you are through how you handle your instrument. Yokishi gripped his drumsticks so hard it looked like they might snap in his calloused hands, the veins bulging along his forearms. In a band, the drums are the core. You saw it when we rehearsed just now, without the drums, we can't play a single note. On that stage, the leader is you. Muscleman. Hey, I'm not that old yet. I'm still a fresh-faced college student. With that face and those muscles. Man, you've got quite a sense of humor. The bald bassist let out a mocking laugh. But hey, keep it up and your head might turn as red as a ripe tomato. Or worse, it'll be stained red with your own blood if you're not careful. Watching this, the muscular drummer finally let a grin slip. It felt as though the darkness lingering on his face, the weight of childhood trauma and constant anxiety, had lightened slightly. Don't blame me if we fail because of my look. Then we'll just keep trying until we make it. If it comes down to it, we'll just seize the broadcast station and play our songs for the whole country. As I threw out the absurd joke, the muscular drummer let out a hearty laugh, his broad shoulders shaking. Now that's what I call a refreshing answer, man. The reason he had played the drums for all these years was that it was the only lingering connection he had to his father. To someone who had spent his college years as an outsider, the drums left behind by the only person who truly understood him were his soul sanctuary. He wanted to make music freely. However, he had always believed his appearance would be an eternal barrier. But this blonde-haired boy, who didn't care about outward appearances and only saw his sincerity toward music, had finally unchained him. Hyungnim, you know it's actually pretty terrifying when you laugh like that, right? Now he felt like he finally understood a little bit of what a band actually meant. A band was the fusion of human sincerity with human sincerity, bonded through the medium of music. What should we name the band? Ah, Enfants Terribles sounds perfect. Individually, we're all a mess, but when we come together, we become the terrible children that the world should fear. Hey, how does Enfants Terribles sound for a band name? Oh, what does it mean? That day, what was decided in that rehearsal room wasn't just whether they would participate in an audition. It was the fate of 3 men who were each, in their own way, a total mess. After all, rock is the story of messed up people coming together to seize everything. And so, in a small rehearsal studio, the first true band in this world was born. From AI's perspective, I think the reason people are scared of the Black Mister is just because of his muscles, don't you? These were the words AI left as she sat eating Häagen-Dazs on the way home. That actually sounds quite plausible. Chapter 19. I just wanted to start a band, but the audition is already a mess before it even begins. 749 words. What is the first thing one must do before entering an audition? It is, of course, selecting or creating the song to be performed. However, this is a world where the lineage of band music does not exist. That's right. To even step foot in an audition, we had to create a song from scratch. The 4 of us, reunited, sat in a circle in the rehearsal studio, discussing music. Because this time, too, AI joined our meeting. She even brought popcorn with her this time. For a band to maintain its vitality over a long period, it's crucial for the members' dispositions to harmonize well. A band that relies solely on the creativity of one individual inevitably falls into a rut of mannerism. Of course, I remember the songs I heard and played in my previous life to some extent, and even now, I'm at home transcribing the melodies in my head onto sheet music. But human memory has its limits. In other words, my musical talent, borrowed from others, will eventually run dry. Truthfully, it's not even talent. In my past life, I was just a talentless hack with nothing but overflowing passion. Fortunately, the 3 of us all have distinct styles. Yokishi, the muscular drummer, favored a sound that, in terms of my past life, would be called heavy metal, fitting his appearance perfectly. Perhaps because he's a drummer, he instinctively leans toward a direction where the drums can be heavily involved. Big brother, I like it rough. If your gritty guitar tone was layered over my powerful yet technical drumming, wouldn't that be a masterpiece? Then there was our bald bassist, Tanaka Shuji, who possessed a taste reflecting his perfectionist personality. In terms of my previous life, it was like a mix of opera rock and progressive rock. Leader, if we make an album, I want to make music that fits a concept. Something grand like an opera with a clear narrative structure but not too dated. I want us to be able to harmonize even the everyday sounds we make if the need arises. To put it simply, he has the tastes of a mad scientist of the music world. Honestly, he seems like a lunatic. Can we even make a song that satisfies all those conditions? Their tastes are exactly like the auras they give off. Now it was my turn to speak. I like simple music. To be more specific, a song with a simple melody, seasoned with intense instrumental sounds and carrying a message. As long as those conditions are met, I'm an omnivore for any style. Rock must be accessible to the public. Music that captures the zeitgeist in a way the masses can understand. Isn't the very root of rock and roll, the core of rock, found in the attitude of resisting an unreasonable era? That all sounds good, but have any of you ever written a song? Well, I knew it. Even if they had, they wouldn't have written a song suited for a band. This is a world without bands, after all. I stood up and addressed them. Let's each compose one song and discuss it again. Now that we know each other's styles, isn't it time to prove which style is superior? In reality, there is no hierarchy in music. But isn't it the nature of instrumentalists to stake their lives on their musical tastes? If I set them up to compete like this, they were bound to bring back great songs with fire in their eyes. Hey, Chrome Dome. I'll make sure not a single one of your songs gets used. Hey, Musselman. Can you even hold a pen with those hands? Indeed. Though Shuji might usually be a coward, he was the type to lose all sense of fear when his pride in music was on the line. The two continued their heated debate until their voices rose, nearly coming to blows. Don't you feel embarrassed with a 13-year-old girl sitting behind you eating popcorn and watching like it's an entertaining show? In the midst of that, AI, who had been quietly munching on her popcorn, spoke up and informed us of an important fact. But for the assigned preliminaries, they judge you based on cover songs. Ha! Pft, kaya ha ha ha. Greater than over equal to nabla less than over equal to. AI clutched her stomach and laughed so hard at the three of us that she even dropped the popcorn in her hand. Looking at her reaction, she definitely knew and kept it to herself. Chapter 20. I just wanted to start a band but I blew up the interview. 791 words. The entertainment industry is ruthless. Countless challengers strive to become stars in the sky, but barely 1% survive. Even those who make it into that 1% must live every moment in fear of when they might lose their place, such is the destiny of a star in showbiz. However, contrary to this cold reality, people still crave romance. Because of that, stars occasionally emerge from the garbage heaps. Survival programs, in particular, are essentially created to chase the public's desire for that very romance. Therefore, even if a contestant seems to have zero potential, the crew records interview footage of everyone to use in editing. Enfants terribles. What's with this convoluted name? To a veteran PD of a scion who had grown old in the industry, this group, who had no agency, didn't dance, and showed up carrying heavy instruments, seemed like they would be eliminated in a heartbeat. Carrying instruments was a unique trait, but that wasn't enough on its own. Well, I guess we should do the interview anyway, right? There are no absolute laws in the entertainment world. Who knows? They might at least serve as decent kindling to spark a brief controversy. Is it, mister? Is there a particular reason you brought instruments? Sitting between a bald man and a muscular black youth, a handsome young man with blonde hair opens his mouth. I'm just fed up with people playing a backing track and dancing instead of actually singing. Excuse me. What was that? The staff member conducting the interview stammers and asks again. I came out here because I can't stand watching people who don't know the first thing about music acting like they're hotshots. The editing PD, watching the interview from behind, breaks into a grin. If they aired those words exactly as they were said, they'd get an explosive reaction right from the start. Should I get under his skin a bit more? The editing PD hands a small note to the interviewer. But can that trash used in dusty old concert halls even appeal to the public? Who even listens to instrumentals these days? It was a statement that insulted every music major on the planet, but the plan was to refine the dialogue and only show it as a subtitle during the broadcast. So what if they rattled their cage a little? These guys wouldn't last long anyway, and provocative elements were always the best for boosting ratings. Since they had fired the first shot, it was only fair for the crew to poke back. But there was something they hadn't anticipated. What, you little shit? Dusty trash. First, there was a crazy bastard in the group who lost all sense of fear the moment his musical pride was insulted. What are you doing? Why are you suddenly cursing? You think I wouldn't curse at that? You son of a bitch. You just cursed at the broadcast staff. I'll make sure to remember this. And second, the other members weren't exactly sane either. Our bald buddy here is acting out because he hasn't come to his senses yet, so how about you eat shit? Ah, I naturally agree with that sentiment. The muscular, dark-skinned man extends his middle finger, his biceps and triceps bulging. Isn't America the birthplace of the fuck gesture? As expected, the original flavor hit differently. Their behavior was nothing short of raw audacity, an act fueled by pure self-assurance. After all, the name Enfants Terribles literally translates to bold and uninhibited children who cannot be controlled by adults. Ha, these guys are absolutely insane. Just you wait and see how this goes out on air. We recorded everything. The interview room instantly descended into a chaotic mess. However, seeing as the band walked out of the space provided by the staff on their own terms, this battle was already a victory for the Enfants Terribles. A short while later, the group introduction video for Asian was broadcast nationwide. Naturally, the highlight was the scene of three unique men flipping off the station staff. Simultaneously, articles regarding the incident slammed onto the front pages of every newspaper. The ruffians who despise the Japanese music industry. Saito Miyako, her hair a brownish-orange hue, shook her head as if the world were ending. She turned to AI, who was sipping juice beside her. AI, whatever you do, never get close to those people. Hearing that, AI let the juice she was drinking dribble straight out of her mouth. She was a problem because she was full of lies, but these guys were a problem because they were far too honest. AI remained frozen in place for a long, long time. Chapter 21. I just wanted to start a band, but I ended up making the judge cry. 1006 words. KATTUN. A group that the massive agency Johnny's is ambitiously launching, set to make a spectacular debut through Asian. Naturally, groups from Amuse and HorrorPro were already guaranteed to advance to the finals. In a way, it was to be expected. The scale of capital and manpower invested into groups from major agencies is on a completely different level than the random nobodies in the indie scene. There was no better way to capture the public's attention. These trainees also watched the Asian broadcast introducing the various groups. What they saw was a total mess, specifically, the scene where the band members openly cursed at the staff and flipped them off. Those guys are never going to make it. Well, it's not like we need to care. We're going to be at the top anyway. Who would give a damn about some fossils carrying around instruments? Instruments in this day and age. In the world of modern pop, weren't instruments just relics of the 1940s destined for the scrap heap? They looked at the members of Enfants Terribles with pathetic gazes and sneered. Regarded as delinquent scoundrels by the production crew, and ignored by anyone with a positive outlook, that was their reality. I was shaking. Across both my lives, this was my first real debut stage, where I would show myself to the public. Yokishi, the muscular mixed-race drummer, was tapping on a desk with his drumsticks, veins popping on his forearms. I'm going to show those bastards who look down on the bass what music really is. Shuji, our bald bassist, was fuming and hardening his resolve all by himself. Yes, we are a band. The stage has been prepared for us, and all we have to do is play our music. Wait, our music. After the interview ended, we had a discussion. The conclusion was simple: our relationship with the staff was already trashed, so to hell with the cover song they suggested. We would play our own music and then walk off the stage. It was obvious we'd fail the preliminary round no matter what we did. If that was the case, we might as well go down playing our music. That was our final decision. Enfants Terribles, please come out. We grabbed our gear and headed toward the audition hall. Since the station had marked us as troublemakers, we had to set up all our instruments ourselves, but we didn't care. We were pros. The kind of pros who could set up a rig with their eyes closed. Hello. The bald guy grinned at the camera, his head reflecting the studio lights. The staff glared at us in response, as if the villains had just entered the room. We followed the guide onto the stage. I felt like the entire world's attention was fixed on me. This doesn't feel too bad, does it? My heart was on the verge of exploding from the sheer adrenaline. Not because of fear or nerves, but because of excitement. Enfants Terribles, let us know when you're ready. And wrap it up quickly. We have plenty of other people to film besides you. Since they were treating us like villains, I figured I should show them what a real villain looks like. The kind of villain that drops a nuclear bomb on a music industry stuck in deep stagnation. Queen's Under Pressure. Released in 1981, it is one of Queen's most iconic masterpieces, featuring a simple yet addictive bass riff, and Freddie Mercury's powerful vocals. Dum 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 da da dum dum. The earworm bass riff, which once topped the UK charts in my previous life, began to resonate across the stage. At the sound of that bass riff, the eyes of the veteran judge, who had been exhausted by the long day of evaluations, began to widen. For an old-timer like him, it was a sound he couldn't help but recognize. Though he hadn't lived through that specific era, it was a sound he had always longed for. It was reminiscent of the sound of the Crickets, the group from the albums his late father had cherished like heirlooms. They were the idols of his youth, a band that burned so brightly and briefly that they left nothing behind but memories. The harmonious sound of the instruments reached the veteran judge's ears. The veteran judge felt a lump in his throat, and let out a soft exclamation of awe. The performance was a passing grade. If so, what about the vocals? Under Pressure was one of the songs Freddie Mercury handled best during his lifetime. In live performances, he often sang the falsetto parts in full voice to give it a more powerful feel. And that's exactly how I'm going to sing it too. Under Pressure is a song that loses half its charm if it lacks Mercury's signature power. The vocals were clear yet gritty, backed by rock-solid vocal technique. An incredible sound surged through the stage. The drums and bass held the line firmly from the back, supporting the vocals with a heavy foundation. While the veteran judge was reminded of his youth during the beginning of the performance, by the end, he was feeling a literal jolt of electricity. It felt as if the passion of his younger days, which he thought had burned out and vanished, was being reignited. They were even better than the Crickets. Even if he wouldn't get to see their brilliant journey for much longer, the veteran judge felt a profound sense of gratitude toward them for liberating his elderly self from the prison of soul-crushing boredom. Tears were streaming down the old man's face. AI was anxious about the three men, who had gone to their first preliminary audition. It wasn't that she was worried they would ruin the performance, she was worried they would cause another massive scandal. Anxiously, she sent a text message. Hoshino AI. I'm genuinely worried, so I'm asking, you didn't cause any trouble today, right? Chapter 22, Side Story, after the first audition. 504 words. Enfant Terribles had passed the first preliminary round against all odds. It was only possible because a shrewd, seasoned judge had raised his voice to insist on their success after the performance ended. It was quite the stir. Those kids, they're not bad at all. The moment you hear it, it's an addictive bass riff that hooks the ears. Then there's that handsome face paired with exceptional vocals. No other descriptors were necessary. On that stage, they were stars. Naturally, as the PD of Visayan, this situation wasn't unwelcome. Since they had already decided to use them as kindling, they might as well let the fire burn a little brighter. In the world of a PD, anything is acceptable as long as the ratings are good. To a producer in the entertainment industry, what matters isn't pride, it's performance. Tangible metrics, specifically the viewership ratings. A virtuous, model group from a major agency winning after overcoming these rude villains. Doesn't that make for a great narrative? It had been a long time since a group this fun to manipulate had appeared. From now on, they would be edited as the kindling for Visayan, framed negatively like a bunch of troublemakers. Of course, he'd throw in a few charming points here and there. This team was guaranteed to make it to the main finals anyway. In that case, the most rational choice was to milk them for all they were worth. From early dawn, we devoted ourselves to practice until AI arrived. We were outsiders despised by everyone, and for us to survive, we had to imprint our existence onto the world through nothing but music. Because of our situation, we were actually more fired up. Hyde, did you cause some kind of accident in the first round too? Sigma. An accident. I feel like AI's treatment of us has become a bit harsher lately, but we definitely didn't cause any trouble. What accident? We just played our own music instead of a cover song. Eh? That is the accident. An accident. The bald bassist, who had been quietly listening to our conversation, took the ice cream out of his mouth and spoke up. What does it matter? The reaction is hot, isn't it? Right, leader? He showed the two of us, who were bickering, the reactions from online communities. Wait, aren't you supposed to do a cover for the first round of Isayan? Those guys have tossed their manners to the dogs and rats. These guys are hilarious www. It's because people let trash like them act out that Japanese society is decaying. Public opinion toward them was violently polarized. Some found their confidence refreshing and entertaining, while others argued that their disregard for rules and etiquette was inappropriate for public figures. However, not a single person had anything negative to say about their music. But wasn't their song actually good? Honestly, making music with real instruments doesn't seem bad at all. Chapter 23. I just wanted to start a band, but something feels unusual from the start. 760 words. Time flew by, and the day of the second audition for Isayan finally arrived. Out of all the groups filtered through the first round, only 16 teams would move onto the main stage. Since the second audition was the period when groups from major agencies began promoting themselves before the finals, one could say the true beginning of Isayan started now. Thus, the curtain rose on the grand festival of the Japanese entertainment industry. AI visited the filming site of Isayan as an audience member along with Saito Ichigo. Her pretext was that she wanted to experience the atmosphere of Isayan, a stage that Bikomachi might stand on one day. Of course, for Saito Ichigo, who cherished AI like his own daughter, he would have gladly accompanied her even without such a justification. Sato President, who do you think will pass? It's not Sato, it's Saito. How many times do I have to? Well, who knows? Either a big agency or someone with real skill will pass. Ah, how boring. AI fell silent as if her excitement had cooled upon hearing the words of the man with the yellow crew cut. But from the man's perspective, he couldn't help it. As the manager of Ichigo Productions, he had experienced firsthand how cold and filled with lies the entertainment industry was. It was impossible to succeed in showbiz with just passion and effort alone. So AI, what kind of answer were you expecting to react like that? In this Isayan, Enfant Terribles will win. Ha! Those ruffians. Because AI's Oshi is there. Brilliant lights illuminated the stage as the host walked out to the center. Everyone who possesses the qualifications to become Japan's top group has gathered here today. Who will move on to the finals? And who will become the most brilliant star? Let the festival begin. Before the performances began, the 4 judges, including the judge who had shed tears during the first audition, were introduced. The panel was divided into 2 junior judges to reflect youthful sensibilities, and 2 senior judges to evaluate music from a mature perspective. It's the long-awaited first act. A gathering of beautiful flowers. AKB48. AKB48 was a multinational Japanese group formed in 2005 consisting of 24 members. Their selling point was that fans could watch the growth of their favorite idol from up close, and they featured constant performances in their dedicated theater. Naturally, since they had to perform 24 hours a day, multiple teams were planned to be formed, but that was a matter for later. They showed up too. Being a member of a Bikomachi, a similar type of underground idol group, AI was also aware of them. However, since she never had the chance to see them with her own eyes, she observed them with a sense of curiosity. They stepped out with a cute concept and delivered their performance. Both the vocals and the dancing were passable, but the problem was that in Isayan, passable was not enough. The shrewd senior judge who had cried last time now wore a look of lamentation. Ah, it's a bit ambiguous. There's nothing distinctive about them, and their selling point to appeal to the public isn't strong enough either. Forget all that. If you want to be called professionals, those kids need to practice more, young men. AI's thoughts were exactly the same. Honestly, she was confident that if she went up there right now, she could deliver a far better stage. They had missed the most important element for an idol, capturing the audience. As someone born with the innate talent of a star, she couldn't understand that lack of impact. Would they perform like that? Ultimately, they failed. Only the shrewd senior judge gave them a pass as a consolation to encourage further effort. Similar scenes repeated constantly, with the exception of groups from major agencies who were painted in capital, utilizing massive numbers of backdancers and high-end equipment. In the midst of that, a raw, grating electric guitar buzz, zzzzzzzzt, began to refresh the atmosphere of the venue, which had been thick with boredom. Simultaneously, the host called out the names of the troublemakers. They are the biggest troublemakers of this Asian that you've all been curious about. The terrifying children that no one can stop. Enfants terribles. When the host announced the name Enfants terribles, the shrewd senior judge stood up from his seat and began to clap. Their entrance was as if a demon lord was descending upon the world. Chapter 24. I just wanted to start a band, and I ended up blowing up the stage. 411 words. Rock and Roll Star by Oasis. This song was written by Oasis, one of the legendary bands of the 90s, during their days of obscurity, when they could barely land a gig at local neighborhood pubs or bars. Despite having nothing, it is a track brimming with self-assurance and self-affirmation, the belief that they were already rock stars simply by existing. Every one of us is a star. We possess infinite possibilities and can become anything we desire. And a rock star is someone meant for those stars, an existence that helps those hidden lights find their own shine. This song is a message to the public who will hear our music from now on, and it is also a self-fulfilling prophecy to ourselves. We are rock and roll stars. Before the vocals even kick in, the powerful, raw thud of the drums and an electric guitar soaked in heavy gain blast forward first. By the standards of my past life, this song wasn't exactly innovative or groundbreaking. However, it was the kind of music that shoved Oasis into the public's consciousness with a killer guitar riff and a massive chorus. This track aligns perfectly with the direction I pursue as a musician. We weave our message into simple, addictive melodies. As the music plays, people begin to shift their shoulders and nod their heads to the rhythm. A few even began to marvel in awe. But they soon realized they had made a mistake. I think I started marveling way too early. The vocalist's clear yet gritty voice pierces through the audience's hearts. Some swayed along with the music, while others quietly hummed the melody. AI watches the scene with a faint smile playing on her lips. The seasoned senior judge was already out of his seat, clapping and enjoying the performance. He had already given them a pass with a perfect score in his mind. The other judges felt similar emotions, even if they hadn't put them into action yet. They were already surrendering their bodies to the melody, swaying to the beat. The first unanimous perfect score in the history of Asian. That was the score Enfants terribles received. The way people looked at Enfants terribles was beginning to change. A band is supposed to prove its worth through music. If the world won't shine a light on us, we will illuminate it with our own hands. They had created their own spotlight. Chapter 25, Side Story, after the second audition. 690 words. No one had expected them to deliver a performance of that caliber. No one, that is, except for the wily veteran judge. Enfants terribles. It was inconceivable that those rude eccentrics, whom most of Japan's reputable newspapers despised and condemned, could produce such a stage. This is, well, a perfect score. Naturally. The veteran judge, his hair thinned with age, offered them high praise with a broad, uncharacteristic grin. The other judges were still frozen in shock, unable to break out of their stupor. It was the Asian host who finally broke the heavy silence on the stage. In broadcasting, the most critical thing is ensuring there is no dead air. That was truly a monstrous performance. Could you please introduce yourselves? The host thrust the microphone forward, attempting an interview. It was a natural and skilled maneuver from one of the industry's top MCs. You probably won't know the name, Enfants terribles, so let's just say we're the guys who flipped the bird at the staff. As the handsome young man with blonde hair, Hyde, spoke, the filming set erupted into a mixture of cheers and jeers. True stars always have the power to make both fans and haters lose their minds. Hyde gestured toward his bandmates, introducing them one by one. First, Yokishi, the dark-skinned, muscular drummer, started things off with a roar. "I'm Yokishi, and I'm in charge of the drums for Enfant Terribles." He introduced himself alongside a display of flamboyant drumming. "Wait, isn't he going to snap the sticks at that rate? How's it going? I'm Shuji. I'm the guy who tried to bash the staff's heads in." Next was the bald bassist, Tanaka Shuji, who introduced himself while the stage lights reflected off his scalp. It felt as though a miniature sun was shining right from the top of his head. That was truly an incredible stage. Looking at the introductory broadcast, the atmosphere suggested you were going to be eliminated immediately. Enfant Terribles refers to uncontrollable, terrifying children. The idea that someone could control us. Don't make me laugh. Without a doubt, they were the stars of the second preliminary round. Though many other performances followed, the only one etched into the public's memory was that of Enfant Terribles. Has there been any music as good as theirs lately? How do they get that kind of sound? Is that even possible? I thought they were just loudmouth hacks, but I guess I was wrong. Once the second audition ended, Hyde was bombarded with calls from everyone, from major agencies to people he had met while trying to form the band. If it had been winter, he could have used his vibrating phone as a hot pack. "But you guys know this is just the beginning, right?" Hyde said. They were getting attention now, but to sublimate that attention into actual popularity, they needed to at least reach the finals. That was Hyde's assessment. "Hey, boss, about the rules for the round of 16. Isn't this way too stacked against us?" From the round of 16 onwards, the performers were required to play a mandatory song chosen by the judges. If they refused, they would be disqualified before they even stepped onto the stage. This wasn't a situation where they could pull another stunt and insist on playing their own original music like last time. Actually, it's better this way. Let's show them just how much their music tastes like trash. Shuji, the bald bassist, was already fuming and hardening his resolve at the mere mention of music. In this world, the lineage of rock band music had been severed. The designated song would almost certainly be a performance-heavy track suited for idols. For a rock band like them, that was a major hurdle. But there's no point in worrying until the assigned song actually comes out, right? It seemed AI was clearly the one with the quickest wits among them. Indeed, youth really is the best. Equals 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 equals. The website for reading paid chapters is available on my Patreon. The number of chapters on Patreon, 71. Link, patreon.com/ultramagnus_t. Chapter 26. I just wanted to start a band, but it seems my bandmates have fallen for a honey trap. 666 words. About a week had passed since then. During that time, we had been tinkering with various dance tracks, researching ways to rearrange idol pop into raw rock music. Our opponents were a 6-member girl group from Stardust promotion called Momwaro Clover Z. If they're our opponents, this might be a bit tricky. In my past life, I knew they were a group that debuted in 2008, but for some reason, their debut timing seemed to have been moved up in this world. With their catchphrase "idols you can meet right now," the weekend heroines, they possessed enough potential to hold massive lives, including a 5-dome tour. How did I know that potential? Because that's how it was in my past life. They were assigned a powerful male pop song, while we were given a sophisticated female pop song as our designated track. Since things had turned out this way, there was only one answer. And that was to rearrange and practice like our lives depended on it until the next stage, then put on a performance that would blow everyone's damn minds. Since when did we ever stop to overthink things before moving? On the day of the stage, we headed to the broadcasting station early in the morning to get our makeup done. For a celebrity to film a broadcast, they have to go through all sorts of processes, including makeup, consultations with the production team, and rehearsals. Leader, doing this actually makes me feel like a celebrity. Hey, Baldy. Why are you so excited when you don't even have any hair to style? Yokishi, even if I don't have hair, I can still get my face done up. The blonde-haired youth already had a fairly striking appearance even before the makeup, so there wasn't a huge difference for him. However, for the other two, getting their makeup done was literally a complete transformation. Ah, please. Don't touch it. How many times have I told you? Of course, the two of them were constantly getting scolded by the makeup artist because they couldn't stop touching their own faces in disbelief. No, really, are there actually people who change this much just with a little styling? As soon as the makeup was finished, the artist looked at my face and let out a gasp of admiration. I take back what I said earlier. This was what a true complete transformation looked like. Just as the makeup artist's reaction suggested, the effect of the cosmetics was incredible, even to my eyes. In my past life, I had inherited Kurt Cobain's looks but was often told I looked quite haggard. However, through the makeup, I had become a fully realized Western-style beauty with a mature vibe fitting for my age. Following the staff, we headed toward the stage area just like last time. We were told it would take a while because everyone participating in the round of 16 had to go through rehearsals. Naturally, cameras followed us even while we were waiting. It was during this time that we ran into our opposing group, Momwaro Clover Z. Should I say hello? No, you should never get friendly with the enemy before a match. We are. I ignored them and tried to walk right past. Why aren't you guys following me? Unlike me, Shuji, our bald bassist, had turned as red as a tomato and was shaking hands with them. Yokishi, our dark-skinned, muscular drummer, was showing off his muscles and laughing along with them. Ah, they have those stars in their eyes, too. There was a reason why Shuji and Yokishi were acting like awkward, helpless boys. While the stars weren't as brilliant as AI's, their eyes were still shining brightly. Honestly, they're nothing compared to our AI. By the way, do you guys even know how old they are before you start acting like that? And for heaven's sake, don't waste those expensive made-up faces like that. Chapter 27. I just wanted to start a band, but the round of 16 was easier than I thought. 923 words. When we returned after finishing our rehearsal, the members were hesitating, looking restless. Leader? Hey, Mun. For some reason, they were fidgeting and reading my expression. I couldn't for the life of me understand why they were acting like that, so I threw out a question to find out. Were they minors? Hey. This is a crime. This is totally a crime. Ah, was that the reason? The reason we could joke and laugh like this was that we had been able to watch their rehearsal from the side. I could say for certain. They were a level below us. While they seemed to possess talent, they were still unpolished gems who hadn't yet seen their potential bloom. By the time AI enters the scene, they might be able to put up a decent fight against her, though. Of course, they say never to let your guard down, but the effort we poured into this round of 16 wouldn't be tarnished that easily. Some might call it arrogance, but we had practiced with such soul-crushing intensity and agonizing deliberation that we had earned the right to be arrogant. An agency manufactures those girls, but we're a homemade operation. Even so, the other members were shaking their legs, seemingly worried. You guys seem pretty nervous. Leader, how do I put it, it's just an uneasy feeling. It doesn't feel like we could possibly lose, so I'm feeling anxious in reverse. Seriously, Mun. They were charming, sure, but it wasn't the kind of performance that makes you gasp in awe, right? Checking my watch, there was still some time left. My eyes felt gritty since we had pulled an all-nighter yesterday working on the arrangement. Should I try to get some sleep? And so, the sight of us falling asleep in the waiting room was captured directly by the cameras. Released in 1984, Takeuchi Maria's Plastic Love is a track that defines the Japanese city pop movement. Even 30 years later, it remains a song with a sophisticated, modern melody and lyrics that resonate with the public. It perfectly captures the optimistic, hedonistic atmosphere of Japanese society in the 80s, back when its high growth was so formidable it threatened the United States. In my past life, it was also a song that blew up as an internet meme. I think the meme involved wearing sunglasses and power walking in your room whenever this song played. For this track, we focused on injecting a funky, metal-infused sound into the sticky, bluesy melody of the original. To put it simply, we used a heavy, metallic tone while simultaneously trying to preserve a sense of rhythm that the audience could groove to. And this time, we even matched our fashion. We threw leather jackets over office attire and donned dark sunglasses that looked like something a Terminator T-800 would wear. If the original song expressed the hedonistic and dreamlike atmosphere of 1980s Japan, we were expressing the raw, dark world hidden behind the light. Now we begin the stage for Enfants Terribles. The stinging metal of the guitar and the funky, upbeat slap of the bass were layered over the song's sultry melody. It was raw but not unrefined. Rather, their arrangement added a linear momentum and a definitive sense of rhythm to the original piece. It felt as though the sound had become sharper and more vivid than the original. The veteran judge noticed something different as he listened to the song. The vocals have a much brighter, piercing resonance than usual. Usually, Hyde would add a bit of grit to his clear voice with scratches, but this time, he was constricting his throat to give the vocals a sharp, metallic edge. Watching this from the waiting room, Momwaro Clover Z stared at the stage as if they had lost their souls. That stage was simply too overwhelming. Enfants Terribles were crushing them in every aspect, including the vocals. Some were already hanging their heads in despair, while others gripped their fists with expressions of bitter frustration. The performance wasn't even over, yet they knew. This round of 16 was their total defeat. There was power in the vocals, yet they retained a sultry, desperate quality. One might argue that such a combination was impossible, but the man on stage was pulling off that difficult feat. Everyone except for Momwaro Clover Z in the waiting room was enjoying the stage. The judges' faces were full of smiles. There was nothing to evaluate. They were already complete artists in their own right, so what judgment could be passed? The judges were simply watching as fellow professionals, listening to the incredible, unprecedented sound they were hearing for the first time. To the judges, the men on stage were already colleagues and pioneers of a new genre. As the vocals finished, a fast, cheerful guitar solo with high-gain resonance wrapped up the song. Enfants Terribles, 4, versus Momwaro Clover Z, 0. That was the result of the Gasayan round of 16. Hoshino AI. How did the round of 16 go? I let a smile slip as I saw the message sent to my phone. The boy suddenly felt like sharing this joy with the girl. Hyde. 4 o'clock. We're the 4. Come out, I'll buy you something delicious. Closing his phone, he walked out of the broadcasting station without wiping the smile from his face. For some reason, the boy wanted to see the girl quickly. Chapter 28, Side Story. I just wanted to have a meal with AI, 1. 916 words. Ichigo Productions, the agency representing AI's group, Bikomachi, was still a small-scale venture just beginning to find its footing in the entertainment industry. No matter how decent a person the CEO, Saito Ichigo, was, the agency had to generate profit. As a result, the girls were currently being pushed through a grueling, relentless schedule. For a minor agency, events like festivals are their primary source of income, and these are concentrated in the sweltering heat of summer. They had to earn enough in one season to survive the entire year. Such was the sorrow of small agencies and the groups signed to them. Sigh. Lately, hasn't the schedule been just too much? The members of Bikomachi entered the cramped waiting room, a space barely large enough to fit a single sofa and a dining table, looking utterly exhausted. The meal waiting for them after their performance consisted of bento boxes from a nearby convenience store, already grown cold. AI was silent, a stark contrast to how she acted when she was with the members of Enfants Terribles. She merely stared at the cold bento, offered a bitter smile, and quietly began her belated meal. If only there was a microwave. It wouldn't have been quite this bad if she could have just heated it up. The waiting room was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the sounds of people eating. Even when occasional conversation drifted through the air, AI remained isolated. To the other members, she was an object of jealousy and envy. Though they didn't actively bully her because they were part of the same group, they kept their distance, feeling increasingly insignificant the more they witnessed her undeniable talent. AI simply ate in silence, listening to the chatter that surrounded her but which she couldn't truly join. She was lonely. It was even more painful because she was at an age where she still needed to grow up surrounded by love. Any other girl her age would have vented their stress by complaining to their parents about their day or chatting with friends, but such things were impossible for AI. AI suddenly found herself missing the blonde-haired boy. For AI, Bikomachi was a jungle she had to endure to survive, not a home where she could find peace. Vibrate. In the midst of her thoughts, she felt her phone vibrate. Hide. 4 o'clock. We got the 4. Come out, I'll buy you something delicious. Hee hee. A smile began to bloom on her face, which until a moment ago had been an expressionless mask. The faded starlight in her eyes regained its natural brilliance, beginning to shine radiantly once more. AI smiled as she began to type her reply. She felt her heart growing lighter. Hoshino AI. Of course. AI is a bigger eater than you think. I'm even going to have Häagen-Dazs. Whenever she was with him, AI felt at peace. Though he could be eccentric at times, he always treated people with raw sincerity. He was easy to read, someone whose emotions were plain on his face, and who would accept her no matter how much she pouted or complained. Because he was more honest than anyone else, he was a person she didn't need to use lies on to fit the situation. That was the kind of person Hyde was. Hi. Vibrate. Hyde. I'm not buying you 13 tubs of Häagen-Dazs like last time. You need to eat more protein than simple sugars to stay healthy. Uncle Yoki. Just what on earth have you been teaching him? Sigma. The man she called Yoki was the muscular mixed-race drummer of Enfants Terribles. Still, the smile never left AI's lips. Just thinking about them was always fun. They were among the few people who genuinely welcomed her whenever she visited. Hoshino AI. Iya. Is Hyde going to end up all beefy too? People are going to be scared of you just like they are of Uncle Yoki. They continued to trade messages back and forth until the moment they finally met. In that moment, the melancholy girl burdened by fatigue had vanished completely. In her place was only a young girl with a bright, mischievous smile fitting for someone her age. AI, over here. Right here. How did you spot me? Wait, is it really okay for you to be out here without a disguise? AI had purposefully pulled her hat down low and worn oversized, baggy clothes to hide her identity, but he appeared to have come to meet her exactly as he looked at the broadcasting station. A leather jacket and sunglasses. And he hasn't even taken off his stage makeup. A few passers-by had already recognized him, and were starting to ask for autographs. It was clear that if they stayed in this spot for even a moment longer, they would be swamped by a sea of people wanting to shake his hand. Let's get out of here. AI grabbed his hand and began to sprint through the night streets. The blonde boy in sunglasses merely scratched his cheek awkwardly and followed the girl's lead. The sight of the two of them fleeing was so full of freedom and warmth that even the strangers watching them couldn't help but wear a soft, heartwarming smile. Chapter 29, Side Story. I just wanted to have a meal with AI too. 709 words. The place we ran into, hands clasped together, was a weather-beaten ramen shop. I wanted to treat her to something nicer, but because it was so late, this was the only kind of place still open. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Ramen in Japan is much like a hot bowl of rice soup, cheap, quick to eat, and a reliable meal you can find anywhere. Thinking that the money I saved on dinner could buy her another pint of Häagen-Dazs later, I raised my hand. Excuse me, 1 miso ramen and 1 tonkatsu ramen please. AI seemed like she had never been to a place like this before, glancing around with wide, curious eyes. It made sense, for a young girl like her, a shop thick with such a quiet, nostalgic atmosphere was likely a first. Children need to experience many things. The world expands and allows one to grow only as much as one has experienced. I was just thinking that I should bring her to places like this more often when she spoke up. Do you like ramen? I think I prefer spicy ramen over ramen. Aren't they the same thing? Sigma. Ramen and ramen are fundamentally different. The highlight of ramen is its thick noodles and a calm, clean broth, whereas ramen is defined by its spicy, punchy soup and thin, springy noodles. They're totally different. I'll buy you some later. Though a kid like you probably couldn't handle the heat. AI can eat spicy food much better than you think. Our banter continued until a chef with a gentle face and a white hat served the noodles, bringing our conversation to a halt. For some reason, he had a warm, satisfied smile as he set the bowls down. I'm stuffed. After lifting the bowl to drain every last drop of broth, AI took a sip of the matcha served as a palate cleanser and leaned back in her chair with a melting expression of bliss. Is an idol really allowed to act like that? AI, patting her stomach and sprawling out in her chair, gave off the exact energy of a middle-aged man picking his teeth with a toothpick after a heavy meal. Does your agency starve you or something? AI looked genuinely puzzled, but that reaction convinced me she was definitely being starved. Otherwise, there was no logical explanation for how 2 extra-large bowls of tonkatsu ramen could vanish into that tiny frame. I looked at AI with an expression of pure pity. No, really. I eat quite well. This wouldn't do. Watching a child in her prime growing years go hungry was something I couldn't permit as an adult. I raised my hand and presented the shop owner, who also seemed to be the proprietor, with 4 10,000 yen bills I had received as today's performance fee. If this girl comes by later, please take good care of her. AI, whenever you're hungry, feel free to come here. I can cover this much for you. When I relayed this to the shop owner, he looked at AI with a heartbroken expression and suddenly seemed to steel his resolve. You can come to our shop anytime, child. To be so poor you can't even afford proper clothes. I'll make sure you never go hungry. Eek. Indeed. The man known as Hyde possessed a body that was 16 years old, but the soul dwelling within was a stubborn, old-fashioned geezer well over 30. Back home, the girl with the violet hair let out a sigh while eating her Haagen-Dazs. This ice cream was also something he had bought for her with that same pitying look on his face. I really do eat well, though. However, as someone who had never been looked after by another person, she didn't find the boy's clumsy kindness unpleasant. In fact, because it was so unrefined, she could feel the sincerity behind his concern for her, and it made her chest feel warm. On that midsummer night that felt sweltering to everyone else, the girl was unknowingly cultivating a deep affection for the boy. Achoo. Even if the person in question didn't seem to notice at all. Chapter 30, I just wanted to start a band but the quarter. 722 words. The 6 members of the idol group KATTUN, belonging to Johnny's Entertainment, were leisurely watching the other contestants' preliminary rounds. Their composure was well-founded. The cost invested in creating an idol group at a major agency easily reaches the billions of won. They were elites and stars forged under the agency's rigorous training systems. The members of KATTUN were those whose talents had fully blossomed under that meticulous education. In this season of Asayan, it seemed there were no groups capable of matching them, with the possible exception of AAA, another group from a major agency. They possessed the skill, and they had the capital to back that skill up. While repeating their rehearsals in the waiting room, they watched a group of strange characters called enfant terribles on the wall-mounted TV. These were men who had made it this far with nothing but their bare hands, without a single agency to support them. While one might respect their will and enthusiasm, reality was often cold. Their music is good, I'll give them that. If they joined a major agency, they'd probably become huge. But not right now. No, if we're talking strictly about skill, they're on the same level as us. The performance they showed in the round of 16 deserved praise. After seeing that stage, the idols changed their minds. AAA wasn't their only competitor. Frankly, they thought they could replicate that level of arrangement using synthesizers. However, in terms of the expressive power used to realize that sound on stage, the band held the upper hand. If the idols created a performance through discipline and synchronized coordination, the band created theirs through raw freedom. As fellow artists, the members of KATTUN wanted to prove that their style of music was just as much an art form as the band's. We will now begin the lottery for the quarter-final matchups. Leaders of each group, please come forward. I nodded and stepped toward the machine where styrofoam balls were bouncing around. Beside me, the leaders of the 7 other groups, including KATTUN and AAA, began to take their places. There are 8 balls consisting of 4 pairs of numbers. Teams with the same number will face off in an all-or-nothing battle for a spot in the ASEAN semifinals. The host expertly began the interviews, angling for the best broadcast footage. Group leaders, please tell us which group you most want to face, and which group you want to avoid. I was the first one handed the microphone. Since we had taken on the villain role for this season of ASEAN, it was only natural. We just play our music. We don't busy ourselves with such useless chatter. Haha. And why is that? Because in the end, Enfant Terribles is going to win anyway. I opened my mouth with an arrogant smirk. By nature, interviews with rock bands are supposed to be cocky. And besides, if the villain acts polite, the story gets boring, doesn't it? Even if this particular season of ASEAN was turning into a picaresque novel. As they listened to my answer, the members of the other groups began to glare at us as if they wanted to kill us. But what are you guys actually going to do about it? Our group, KATTUN, wants to face Enfant Terribles. Oh. And what is the reason for that? The host thrust the microphone toward Ueda Tatsuya, the leader of KATTUN, who possessed a pretty yet masculine appearance. Ueda Tatsuya was a man who took immense pride in his songwriting and composing abilities, a star, who had already blossomed with talent in both vocals and rap. In other words, he was one of the few talents in ASEAN with the actual skill to challenge Hyde, the vocalist of Enfant Terribles. I want to break that arrogance of theirs, the claim that only their music counts as music. The arrogance of Enfant Terribles isn't cool or sexy, it's an insult to the seniors who have spent years honing and refining this industry. And just like that, our quarterfinal opponent was decided, KATTUN. This is going to be quite an interesting stage. Equals 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 equals. The website for reading paid chapters is available on my Patreon. The number of chapters on Patreon, 88. Link, patreon.com/ultramagnus_t. Chapter 31. I just wanted to start a band, but it's already rowdy even before the quarter. 790 words. Just like the round of 16, the quarterfinals were a single-match knockout format where the winner took all. However, there were key differences. While the judges had assigned songs in the round of 16, starting from the quarterfinals, the contestants had to perform their own original songs. Another change was the addition of an audience evaluation system. Furthermore, due to that previous interview, the showdown between KATTUN and Enfant Terribles had become the definitive rivalry of this season's ASEAN. Many were eagerly awaiting this specific clash. Hooligans versus model students, golden boys from a massive agency versus an independent band of paupers, the narrative even succeeded in reminding the older generation of the legendary rivalries of the past. The match was no longer being treated as a simple audition stage. It was being framed as a proxy war for the generational and class conflicts simmering within Japanese society. Quite literally, their battle had become a main event for the entire Japanese archipelago. You went and caused another scene, didn't you? Tell me you didn't. Caused a scene. I just told them exactly how things are. Contrary to the media's hysteria and the public's fuss, the members of Enfants Terribles remained perfectly calm. The media is the same here as it was in my past life. The blonde-haired young man recalled the Britpop war between Blur and Oasis that took place in England during his previous life. He remembered the media frenzy, and that flashy yet hollow war manufactured solely to revive the domestic music industry. The media and the Japanese music industry were likely attempting to manufacture a similar rivalry. They wanted to pit traditional Japanese music against the unprecedented style emerging through Enfants Terribles to generate global interest. This conflict had nothing to do with musicality. To begin with, they held no personal grudge against KATTUN. That was why Enfants Terribles remained indifferent to the social uproar. All this noise doesn't really matter. Even though everyone is making such a big deal out of it. AI was still young, after all. But a child like her didn't need to know about the underworld of adults, tangled in various interests and hidden agendas. She would find out eventually as she navigated this industry, but I always hoped she would only have to see the bright side of things. A rivalry only works if the participants are on the same level. You're so cocky. Degree. The boss is right. We have no intention of playing at being rivals. Damn right. Being compared to those types is insulting enough as it is. The muscular drummer and the bald bassist voiced their agreement. Do you know how the actual Britpop war ended? Oasis eventually released a killer album, creating such an insurmountable musical gap between them and Blur that the war simply ceased to exist. This war would be the same. It was a conflict that would end once we delivered a performance so brilliant that comparisons became meaningless. The PD of ASIAN smiled as he looked over the quarterfinal set. This year's ASIAN was a literal jackpot. It would be perfect if KATTUN won here. This wasn't out of personal bias. It was because the high-ranking network executives were beginning to feel uncomfortable with Enfants Terribles' behavior, and that was exactly what they wanted. Even if the band were to be eliminated now, the result wouldn't be bad. Enfants Terribles had already played their part as kindling, and then some. They had created an unprecedented rivalry in the history of ASIAN, and thanks to that, the show was currently enjoying an immense amount of attention from the entire country like never before. Maybe if I create a program specifically for discovering bands, the ratings will be pretty good. While the PD was lost in thought, the host stepped out into the center of the stage. This is the showdown you've all been waiting for. The protagonists of this match are KATTUN and Enfants Terribles. The moment the host opened his mouth, the venue erupted in cheers and applause. The passion of the audience was so overwhelming that for a moment, the temperature in the hall seemed to rise physically. Let the battle begin. The war that the entire Japanese archipelago was watching had fired its opening salvo. What are we calling this song? How about Viva la Vida? They said those KATTUN guys were good with synthesizers. But it's not like we don't know how to handle synths ourselves. How do you crush them through music? It's simpler than you'd think. You just use their own specialty to create an absolutely insane piece of music. Since it's come to this, we're going head to head. Chapter 32. I just wanted to start a band, but it seems I've made a close friend. 1099 words. In this match, those who didn't know Enfants Terribles predicted a landslide victory for KATTUN. It was, in a sense, a natural assumption, as they had already made a name for themselves as exclusive backup dancers for Demoto Koichi even before appearing on ASIAN. On one side was a rookie group formed only a few months ago, on the other was KATTUN, who had survived and thrived under the rigorous care of a major agency and their seniors. Naturally, the general audience expected KATTUN to win overwhelmingly. It's obviously gonna be KATTUN, right? LOL. Those Enfants Terribles brats are gonna go home crying. LMAO. I heard Enfants Terribles hasn't been together that long. Is this even going to be a fair fight? The guys in KATTUN weren't talentless hacks. They had brought something massive to the table. This song, it's similar to See You Again from my past life. Of course, since KATTUN had 6 members, the details differed, but it was clearly a track echoing the vibe of Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth's See You Again. I don't recall them having the talent to produce music of this caliber in my previous life. Even more surprising, they didn't perform with their usual mix of dance and music. Instead, they stood still, focusing entirely on their vocals, reminiscent of Westlife. And perhaps inspired by us, Ueda Tatsuya even brought out a piano for the performance. It was a clash of titans, power against power. They had stepped into our territory, bringing the very things we specialized in. Whoa! Shuji, the bald bassist who had been venting an unidentifiable mix of anger and passion just moments ago, let out an admiring gasp, his head reflecting the stage lights. The score they received from the audience was nearly perfect. This was going to be a truly interesting fight. I clenched my fists as a surge of adrenaline raced up my spine. Released in 2008, Coldplay's Viva La Vida. It was a song like the final flicker of a dying flame for the rock scene, which had been slowly fading since the alternative craze of the 90s. After this track, no other rock band managed to secure the #1 spot on the Billboard charts. It was a song that offered nostalgia for the peak years to those who had tasted success, and hope to those who hadn't. It was also inspired by Frida Kahlo, the Mexican painter who lived a life as fierce as fire before she passed. Using the vague memory of the melody as my guiding light, I had searched high and low to record the string sections, barely piecing the track together. Just as they had poured their souls into this stage, we had poured ours into this one as well. Next up is the group of Asian's biggest troublemakers. And at the same time, a gathering of geniuses. Here is Enfants Terribles. On the pitch-black stage, only a few spotlights flickered on to illuminate us. Simultaneously, the pre-recorded ensemble of string instruments, grand contrabasses, violins, and cellos, began to resonate through the air. Bam-ba, bam-ba, bam-ba-ba, bam. Before the vocals even started, the weight of the instruments began to overwhelm the crowd. This time, we brought a different instrumental setup to match the song. Our muscular black drummer was playing a kick drum and a church bell. We intended to use those imposing muscles to generate the massive, physical sound of the instruments live. The world tried to paint us as spokesmen for the weak. They wanted us to play out the resentment and depression of the marginalized on their behalf. But why should we conform to their demands? Why should the weak only dream of resentment and gloom? Hope for the future isn't the exclusive property of a certain class, it should be the common dream of everyone. In my past life, I lived like a complete wretch. I was destitute and at times servile because I lacked money. Yet, for me, waking up in the morning was always the best thing. There were times when I struggled even to buy a triangular kimbap from a convenience store, but I was still happy every morning. No one knows how or where I'll spend my day, right? Even if I lacked money, I was insanely happy every single day because of the hope I had for my dreams. That's why I chose this song, a reflection on the glory days from the perspective of someone who has already tasted victory. Having a prime means you've experienced that much success. Oh. This song is a grand epic told by one who has succeeded but fallen. The strings and the band's instruments blended harmoniously, creating an overpowering atmosphere. As the song reached its climax, the audience began to sing along to the refrain. When the song ended, the hall was filled with thunderous applause. The audience was offering a tribute to the artists, who had bared their souls to convey their sincerity. The result of the quarterfinal was KATTUN 2 versus Enfants Terribles 2. With a perfect score from the audience, Enfants Terribles took the win. It was a result earned because Enfants Terribles chose music and a performance that truly resonated in a live setting. The level of music was similar. But it was our defeat, caused by us throwing away our own strengths with our own hands. KATTUN's leader, Ueda Tatsuya, had secretly been gripped by jealousy, wondering if these guys, who did nothing but music, were closer to the essence of an artist than he was. But music has no limits. If anything, they were more pop than we were. They had brought the ultimate pop track, something so magnificent that everyone had no choice but to listen. If only we had done something brighter. Our music didn't lose either. While the other members were frustrated, Ueda Tatsuya stopped them. Congratulations. You won. Ueda Tatsuya gave a clean, refreshing smile. He had no regrets because he had given it his all. Since you beat us, you better keep your word and win the whole thing. Hey, you guys were great too. We'll handle your grudge for you. He had just killed their chances and now he was talking about handling their grudge. What kind of nonsense was that? Yet, that attitude was exactly what made them enfant terribles. Yeah, you guys are really something. Ueda Tatsuya might have lost the match, but he had gained friends with whom he could share music. Together, they walked down from the stage. Chapter 33, Side Story, Those with Stars in Their Eyes Are Originally Gifted. So Composition 2. 697 words. It was, quite literally, a massive upset. Enfant Terribles, a band of ragtag troublemakers formed only recently, had snatched victory from KATTUN, a group considered a top contender alongside AAA. They were no longer mere hopefuls. The veil of public skepticism that once clouded them had been lifted. What are these guys, seriously? In our great Japan, a new kind of music has been born. I've been listening to all their tracks, and every single one is insane. Honestly, isn't the way they cause chaos just freaking cool? The rewards for defeating a powerhouse agency group like KATTUN in a head-to-head rival match were immense. This momentum was immediately reflected in the Billboard Japan Hot 100. A syndrome of troublemakers sweeps the Japanese archipelago. Enfant Terribles achieves a clean sweep on Billboard Japan Hot 100. The first chart sweep in 10 years. The Troublemakers' riot is a success today as well. In a flash, we went from being cocky newcomers to rising stars. The sharp criticisms previously leveled at us by the media began to vanish, replaced by articles that were largely supportive and positive. But the biggest change of all was the flood of requests for performances. Historically, bands make their real money through gigs and touring. Digital sales revenue. No matter how much you pull in, it's pocket change compared to the profits of a world tour. Yokishi, Shuji. We're going to be rich. I spoke with a sly, devious grin. It was time to say a permanent goodbye to the days of surviving on tear-soaked, cheap snacks. Big bro, what do you mean by that? I mean we've finally become a band that gets invited to play events. Oh. Now that gets me fired up. I was just as giddy about the performance requests. To think that I, a man who once barely held on to session gigs, was now being specifically requested by others to play music. Plus, since we didn't have an agency, we'd get to keep every single cent of the performance fees for ourselves. He. I was lost in a dark chuckle, arms locked with my bandmates in celebration. However, AI, who had been watching our reaction with a confused expression, threw a question our way. But can you even go to events while you're participating in a Scion? Ha! The semifinals of a Scion, just like the quarterfinals, would be an all-or-nothing showdown using original compositions. The only difference was the addition of text voting, and the shift from a single elimination format to a best-of-3 series. We needed to create 3 original songs all at once. For groups backed by major agencies, this wasn't much of an issue since they could mobilize an army of professional songwriters. For us, operating as a DIY home industry, it was a different story. Even if I know the melody lines of legendary songs, implementing them into a full arrangement takes time. Yokishi and Shuji's excellent musical instincts had been a massive help in recreating hits from my past life, but now, I needed their strength more than ever. In truth, the act of composing isn't that difficult in itself. First, you envision a melody in your head and translate it onto an instrument. Then, you hammer out some lyrics that fit the melody. The problem is that 99% of the songs produced this way are garbage. Great songs don't emerge just because you worry about them. That's why composition is truly the realm of raw instinct and talent. If writing 3 songs is that much of a burden, should AI help you out a bit? That was it. This was a world where those with stars in their eyes possessed monstrous talent. And AI was the girl with the most brilliant stars I had ever seen. Then wouldn't she be good at writing music too? AI, do you want to try learning the guitar first? In my past life, I was a lowly E-rank session musician, but I was also the guy who lured countless kids into the world of guitar while working as a tutor. It's an unwritten rule that true composition happens on a guitar. Hell yeah. Chapter 34, Side Story. I started teaching AI guitar. 940 words. Since day, I had started teaching AI how to play the guitar. Ever since she started learning, her interest in music seemed to spike. It wasn't just the flurry of texts asking me this and that, the amount of time we spent alone together naturally increased as well. It usually went something like this. Hoshino AI. How about a lesson this evening? Closed union with serifs union beside and joined with union closed union with serifs. But isn't AI a busy active idle? I didn't know where she found the time, but AI sent texts almost every single day, insisting on a lesson. Of course, once the lesson actually started, she'd throw a tantrum, complaining that her hands hurt or that it was boring. But that's just how starting the guitar goes. Your fingers are supposed to hurt. AI, you chose this instrument. You've got to grit your teeth and endure it. Hide. Today is a rehearsal day for the band. I'm going to be finished pretty late today. As soon as I sent the text, a flood of replies came crashing in. Wait, isn't this a bit much? It felt like AI's whining had increased lately, but I checked the message window with a faint smile. Kids are supposed to grow up through their complaints, after all. If there aren't any adults around AI to handle her fussing, shouldn't I at least take up that role? Hoshino AI. The ultra top tier popular idol AI is asking though. And I can wait. Greater than over equal to nabla less than over equal to. Besides, it's boring without hide. Is it really impossible? Really? But I really can't today. And yet, AI was crying. As an adult, could I really just sit by and watch a child cry? No, I'm not the kind of man who can simply ignore a child's tears. There was only one answer. Even though I had pulled an all-nighter trying to translate songs from my past life into reality, it was a problem that could be solved by just cutting more into my sleep. Hide. You're an idol, sure, but ultra top tier. Not quite. I'll put some Häagen-Dazs in the studio fridge. Eat that and wait for me. She must have been staring at her phone because the reaction was instantaneous. Whenever I spent my daily life like this with AI, I truly felt like I had gained a daughter. And that wasn't a bad feeling at all. Will AI eventually start saying things like "I hate you, Dad," like girls usually do during puberty? That would be a bit bitter. Hoshino AI. Häagen-Dazs. * Union. I'm coming right now. See you at the rehearsal studio. Closed union with serifs. To think someone would abandon such a cute daughter. They basically kicked away their own luck, but even so, AI's parents deserve divine punishment. I'll be the one taking care of your daughter now. The guitar is an instrument with a high barrier to entry. The notation itself isn't the standard melodic sheet music most people think of. We use tablature. And even if you get used to reading tabs, you have to endure the pain of building calluses on your fingers while practicing chords. Only after getting accustomed to that process can you begin to master the various skills people associate with guitarists, starting with fingerpicking. Since my past life, I was never a genius but rather a person of average talent, which actually gave me a knack for teaching others. Back then, because I lacked raw skill, I had maxed out my theoretical knowledge instead. I don't play the guitar by feel. Traying, ting. Ha. Seriously, what is the problem here? With a look of utter incomprehension, I watched AI strum the guitar. That was something that could never be called a performance. How was AI's fantastic performance? Didn't it look a bit like Hyde? Closed union with serifs, union beside and joined with union, closed union with serifs. Alright, AI, let me explain how to hold a bar chord again. No, let's just go back to practicing scales. Yeah. That makes my hands hurt. Look, AI is an idol, and look at the calluses forming on my hands. AI spread her fingers wide and shoved them toward me. No, if you've actually got calluses, then why on earth? What is going wrong? I slumped in despair after seeing AI's hands. It was clear that having stars in your eyes had absolutely nothing to do with musical talent. Yokishi, Shuji. I miss you guys so damn much. Unless Hyde plays a song just for me, I am absolutely never practicing scales. Delta. Whenever it came time for guitar lessons, AI's whining grew exponentially. I couldn't tell if the hardship of practice was peeling away the thin mask she usually wore, but when she practiced, AI looked more sincere and happy than at any other time. If it makes you happy. I took the guitar she was holding. Well, any song you want to hear. Layla. That's my absolute favorite. Again? Watching Hyde play the guitar, AI's face flushed red. Whenever she heard this song, she felt a soft, fuzzy warmth blooming in her chest. According to him, Layla was a song written while imagining courting someone he loved. In that case, this song should never, ever be released to the world. For some reason, the mere thought of him playing this song for someone else left AI feeling unpleasant and dirty. She was, as she had always been, a greedy girl. Chapter 35. I just wanted to start a band, but selecting songs is already a mess. 693 words. Time flew by, and the moment eventually arrived where we had to choose the songs for the semifinals. Honestly, I thought it would be a success if I could just get even one usable track out of Yokishi and Shuji. Composition is strictly the realm of talent and instinct. It's an even more daunting task to write a band piece where various instruments must move in harmony. Shuji, so this is the music you brought? Yeah, leader. What do you think? Isn't it incredible? The song from the bald bassist was incredibly depressing and convoluted. It was experimental, but experimental only for the sake of it. The emotional line of the track was all over the place, and the lyrics were so pessimistic they didn't even fit the melody. From now on, your nickname is the Mad Scientist. You crazy bastard. Doesn't it sound like an opera? For music to be called operatic, you'd have to bring something on the level of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody for me to agree. The track the bald bassist brought wasn't operatic, it was just a total train wreck. Operatic rock is notoriously difficult to compose. Queen is called a legend because they actually pulled off that impossible feat, Baldy. An opera isn't a mess like this song you made. Hey, musclehead, do you have any idea how experimental my music is? I spoke up, stopping the two as they stood ready to trade punches. Forget whether it's an opera or whatever. First off, it has to be good to listen to. I told you to write a band song, but you brought me a funeral dirge. At my words, the bald bassist dropped to his knees and sank into despair. Beside him, AI, who had been listening to the track, was clutching her arms and shivering as if she had just seen a ghost. The next person to present a song was the muscular drummer, Yokishi. And as I listened to the song he brought, I couldn't stop the admiration from welling up. The track was similar to Tears by the band X Japan from my previous life. Brother, what's wrong? Did you really write this? The bald bassist was already looking at the muscular drummer, with eyes full of respect. This is your story, isn't it, Yokishi? It's a song I wrote while thinking about my late father, brother. True masterpieces are born when a person's life is poured into them. And Yokishi had poured his entire life into this track. It was a tribute dedicated to his father, who had passed away during the Gulf War. The song was filled with the emotions he felt after losing his father, the only person who truly understood him in conservative Japanese society, and the words he wanted to convey to his father in heaven. I absolutely cannot be the one to sing this song. With that firm resolve, I gripped Yokishi's shoulder and spoke. It didn't matter if we lost a match. Yokishi, you sing this. No one else should ever sing this song but you. This song captured the sorrow, loneliness, and weakness of a man struggling to survive. This music was his life itself. I can't sing as well as you, brother. I wrote this assuming you'd be the one singing it in the first place. No, I won't sing it. Even if his muscles were to split my head open, I had no intention of singing this song. That was my way of showing respect to a bandmate. All right, brother. Thanks for being so considerate. I was walking Ai home as usual. For some reason, she didn't look very happy. Hyde, why did you let Uncle Yoki sing that song? Because that was my sincerity toward Yokishi. Ai looked at me with a confused expression, clearly unable to understand my answer. But we might lose the semifinals, right? To me, being sincere to my people is more important than that. Once trust is lost, it can never be regained. Equals 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 equals. The website for reading paid chapters is available on my Patreon. The number of chapters on Patreon, 91. Link, patreon.com/ultramagnus_T. Chapter 36, The entertainment industry is originally full of lies. 676 words. The matchup that could be called the highlight of the semifinals was the clash between AAA, a group from a major agency, and Enfants Terribles. Along with KATTUN, their opponent in the top four, AAA was a top contender for the championship, a six-member co-ed group that pursued high-level musicality, with every member possessing songwriting and composition skills. Just like the quarterfinals, the semifinals could practically be called the de facto final. This is going to get messy. The ASEAN PD sighed with regret. If things went like this, the actual final, which was supposed to be the climax of the festival, would end up far too bland. Of course, this season of ASEAN was already a massive success. It had created an unprecedented rivalry, and birthed a rising star, who was triggering a legitimate syndrome. By nature, PDs are creatures who would sell their souls for the sake of viewership ratings. Getting cursed at by the staff. He didn't even care about that anymore. The problem, however, was that the agency officials and the high-ranking executives of the broadcasting station didn't seem to feel the same way. He was in the middle of leading the teaser editing for the ASEAN semifinals with those thoughts in mind. Since the final was ruined anyway, he decided to treat the semifinal as the real main event. Just then, his phone rang. Who is it now, while I have the whole crew pulled in for an all-nighter? The irritation on the ASEAN PD's face began to drain away, replaced by something else. Why on earth is this person calling? It was an executive from the agency AAA belonged to. An executive who, moreover, had deep-rooted ties with the broadcasting station. Listen here, PDs are supposed to be people who would sell their souls for viewership ratings. Haha. I was exactly like you back when I was active in the field, so don't you think I'd know that? Sitting before the ASEAN PD were the bureau director of the station, and an executive from the major agency that produced AAA. Isn't it about time for this miracle to end? What do you mean by that? In the broadcasting world, meeting with an agency executive while a survival program is ongoing is an absolute taboo. Although he had only come out because the bureau director summoned him, the ASEAN PD found this seat incredibly uncomfortable. I'm saying that AAA must be the winner. We don't know that yet. Hey, do you have any idea how much money we poured into raising those AAA kids? But our kids aren't even getting any spotlight. If that's the case, they should at least make it to the finals so we can milk the last of the hype, shouldn't they? In his personal opinion, if AAA and Enfants Terribles faced off, Enfants Terribles would win without question. Coldly speaking, AAA was a tier below Enfants Terribles. In fact, they would have lost even if they had faced KATTUN. KATTUN had already proven their caliber through their performance of See You Again. So what do you want me to do about it? Give us a little help. Even the bureau director was now staring intently at the ASEAN PD, shameless bastards. Who do they think saved ASEAN when it was on its deathbed? Even though he was a man who had sold his soul to viewership ratings, he had not sold his pride and conscience as a producer. To such a man, ASEAN was his pride, it was his life itself. You sons of bitches. The entertainment industry is inherently full of lies. Because he hated that, he had overhauled ASEAN so it could show the public as much sincerity as possible. The result of that effort was the KATTUN versus Enfants Terribles rivalry. It was a rivalry that could only be forged because of their genuine sincerity toward music. And if I refuse? Well, that wouldn't lead to a very good result, would it? We'll make sure to take good care of you afterwards. Haha. Chapter 37. I just wanted to start a band, but something feels strange from the very first stage of the semi. 1054 words. This chapter is best enjoyed while listening to Hey Jude. Located in Saitama Prefecture, the Saitama Super Arena is a megaton-class venue with a capacity of 36,500 people. It is the stage where the semi-finals and finals of ASEAN would be held. Completed in 2000, the facility is state-of-the-art. In modern times, it is a stadium that holds a status just below the Tokyo Dome, the final goal for singers who have already conquered the Nippon Budokan. We were originally going to hold it at the Budokan, though. Offline tickets were already sold out and impossible to find. So many viewers flocked to the broadcast station's website that it crashed, leading to the decision to move the event to the much larger Saitama Super Arena. The ASEAN semifinals were a grand festival for the entire Japanese archipelago, yet the PD's face was etched with anxiety. Manipulating text votes and audience evaluations isn't that hard. Just help us out with that. We'll even help mobilize people for you. What AAA's agency and the broadcast station director demanded was match fixing, a clandestine method enabled by live broadcasts, and the spread of mobile phones, impossible for the public to know unless someone leaked it. The ASEAN PD made his decision. He would follow their instructions, yet not follow them. Even if he became a sacrifice, ASEAN, which was essentially his entire life, would survive. Eat shit, you bastards. I don't have the confidence. I don't have the confidence to lose at all. The original goal for Enfants Terribles was to reach the finals. Because of that, I gritted my teeth and prepared our set list. From my past life, I brought forth the immortal masterpiece, Hey Jude by the Beatles, and Can't Stop by RHCP, which contains the very essence of funk rock. Furthermore, Tears, composed by Yokishi, is a damn amazing song that carries a man's entire life within it. Alright, what's our goal? Quick and decisive. Brother, I'd prefer if we finished it before I even have to sing. We placed Yokishi's music last. There was Yokishi's personal insistence, but it was also because the vibe of Tears itself felt like the ending credit song of a movie. Dramatic structure is crucial in a performance. We'd lead the crowd into a sing-along with a Hey Jude, carry that heat into Can't Stop to immerse the audience, and then make them weep with Tears. That was our plan. Over 30,000 people are waiting for us. Let's turn every single one of them into our fans. Yeah. Brother, that sounds absolutely fantastic. A crowd of over 30,000, specifically, 36,500 people, were screaming for us. The three of us locked eyes. We had finally made it here. Men who were a mess, owning nothing, had reached the front of 30,000 people armed with nothing but their sincerity toward music. Our eyes were filled with mutual trust. Individually, we might be disasters, but when we come together, we become the terrible children. That is, enfants terribles. In the waiting room across from enfants terribles, AAA was also stealing their resolve. They, too, were people who had dedicated their lives to music. Nishijima, the leader of AAA, looked around at his colleagues. I admit that AAA is at a disadvantage against enfants terribles. However, we can't just hand them the victory. Nishijima huddles with his teammates to talk. We might lose individually, but there are 5 of us. We can win. The Gasayan semifinals had long been tainted by their agencies regardless of their will, but the fact that they were approaching the semifinals with sincerity for music remained unchanged. Even if the results were distorted, their sincerity toward music would not be. Wah wah. The host steps onto the center of the stage, riling up the crowd and inducing cheers. We will now begin the first stage of the Gasayan semifinals. The first stage belongs to the children who cannot be stopped. Enfants terribles. The first song is a Hey Jude by the legendary band The Beatles. It was a song created by the legendary musician Paul McCartney to comfort the son of his rival and close friend, John Lennon. In my past life, there wasn't a human being breathing on earth who didn't know the sing-along part at the end. While the original version has a mood closer to a soft ballad in the beginning, we rearranged it with a rougher sound to suit a live performance. Instead, to maintain the original feeling of tenderly comforting a child, I sang with a clear and refreshing voice, unlike my usual style. The crisp instrumental sound blended with the clear, refreshing vocals to create a sense of coolness and invigoration. The members of AAA watched the performance of Enfants Terribles with clenched fists. That song surpassed being great, it was a masterpiece worthy of being called legendary. Even before their own stage began, they had a premonition of defeat. They could never beat that song. If the quality of the other songs was at this level, their defeat in the semifinals was certain. We intended to send a message of comfort to the world through this song. Although Paul McCartney wrote this for his friend's son, its sincerity cemented it as a song that comforted hearts across the entire globe. As the song reached its climax, 36,500 audience members began to sing along with Enfants Terribles. The sight of over 30,000 people holding each other's shoulders and singing the same song was nothing short of overwhelming. In a world where band music didn't exist and thus sing-alongs didn't exist, Enfants Terribles had created a new concept. That historic scene continued for over 3 long minutes. The first round was a victory for Enfants Terribles. In some ways, it's a natural result. The winner is Enfants Terribles. As the host's words finished, a result of 2:1 was announced on the screen behind the stage. However, AAA's potential is not to be underestimated. AAA takes the win in the text voting. As the host's voice rang out, the stands were filled with murmurs. To the audience's ears, Enfants Terribles' Hey Jude was absolutely superior. And yet, they lost the text vote. It was a bizarre phenomenon. Under the shadow of doubt from both the performers and the audience, the second round commenced. Chapter 38. I just wanted to start a band, but something feels strange about the second stage of the semi. 1078 words. Listening to Can't Stop by the Red Hot Chili Peppers while reading will enhance your experience. Watching the Gasayan semifinals at the Ichigo production office, AI wore a look of deep suspicion. While AAA's performance had been excellent, the stage delivered by Enfants Terribles was on a level that transcended mere excellence. But 2-1. Crossing her arms in thought, AI could vaguely sense what was happening behind the curtain. As the center of the unknown underground idol group Bikomachi, she already knew the entertainment industry was a world built on lies. However, this didn't feel like typical, unfair industry practices. I knew it already. But to think it was this bad. Her eyes were stained with a dark, heavy shadow. Oh yeah. One win down. Hey, Chrome Dome, turn the tension down. Your head is reflecting so much light I can't see the front. We had secured our first win. While it was a shame we didn't win 3 o'clock, band music's true vitality is best felt live. I settled my mind with the thought that this was simply the limitation of broadcast technology in the mid-2000s. Then, I threw my arms around the shoulders of Shuji and Yokishi. Everyone, keep this pace. Whether it's 2:1 or 3 o'clock, a win is a win either way. Leader, our goal isn't just winning, it's making 30,000 people our fans. Baldy's actually saying something right for once, huh? Unlike the commotion among the audience, the Enfants Terribles waiting room was tranquil. They were simply focused on showcasing their music on stage, regardless of the victory or defeat. In contrast to the peaceful Enfants Terribles waiting room, the AAA dressing room was a scene of chaos. They knew they had been overwhelmingly outmatched, in both performance and musicality. The moment 30,000 people sang along to their opponent's song, the battle should have been over. We still have a chance. We lost 2:1, but that's only a 1-point difference. Let's do just a little better. But no. Our music was clearly appealing enough to the public. Have confidence. The results speak for themselves. Nishijima knew something was off. But the match wasn't over yet. Even if there were suspicious elements, as musicians, they just had to play their music. Suppressing the doubt rising in his heart, Nishijima, the leader of AAA, encouraged his teammates. They prepared for their next stage while watching Enfants Terribles' performance on the waiting room TV. Damn it. Once again, Nishijima's face contorted with frustration, his fists clenching so hard the veins bulged. While not quite the same vibe as a Hey Jude, the band was once again overwhelming. Can't Stop was an indisputable representative track of the legendary funk rock band, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, capturing the very essence of their funky style. And the riff of this song is one of the most iconic of the 2000s. Since I was currently in mid-2000s Japan, Can't Stop had a high probability of aligning perfectly with public taste. Of course, I couldn't expect a sing-along this time. The lyrics were dense, occupying a space somewhere between singing and rapping, and the tempo was incredibly fast. We will now begin the second stage of the Gasayan semifinals. The moment the host finished speaking, Shuji's punchy slap bass and funky guitar riffs began piercing the ears of the crowd. Just before the vocals started, the stage lights flooded Enfants Terribles, revealing them standing shirtless, muscles fully exposed. After all, muscles are a basic requirement for funk rock. As their physiques were revealed, gasps of admiration mixed with the pleasant screams of fans. In a conservative Japanese society, seeing artists perform shirtless was a first, a trailblazing move by Enfants Terribles, so the reaction was only natural. The core of funk rock is to resist the absurdities of the world while remaining cool and sexy. As if showcasing our defiance, guitar sounds laden with heavy distortion and sticky, sexy bass lines echoed throughout the arena. The heat from the audience began to induce sweat, making the band members' muscles appear even more defined. Captivated by the sight of men brandishing instruments while flaunting sculpted physiques, spectators actually started calling music stores on the spot. In my past life, Can't Stop was a song so popular that every guitarist or bassist knew how to play it. This was due to its funky, sexy riffs and brilliant lyrics that spoke to those who had lost themselves to the world's oppression. As mentioned, punk resists every irrational phenomenon in society. By the midpoint of the song, even though the audience couldn't understand all the lyrics or follow the rap-style vocals, they were shirtless and swaying their bodies just like the men on stage. The scene lacked rigid discipline or synchronization, but freedom and sincerity had taken their place. Unlike idle stages, a band's performance is meant to be overflowing with wild, uninhibited spirit. Enfants Terribles displayed the pinnacle of punk during this set. While the previous stage had introduced the concept of the sing-along, this performance liberated the crowd from the artificial joy of idle concerts where focus on choreography often buried the music itself. The semifinals of Gasayan could truly be called one of the most glorious moments in the history of popular music. It was a moment that freed spectators worldwide from invisible constraints. Enfants Terribles had birthed a completely new type of performance culture. AAA and Enfants Terribles stood side by side, awaiting the results of the second stage. AAA, in their meticulously coordinated outfits, stood in stark contrast to the arrogant, shirtless members of Enfants Terribles. However, the members of AAA did not look bright. They had already sensed their defeat. But then, an unexpected result was announced. The ASEAN semifinals are neck and neck. The winner of this stage, with a score of 2-1, is AAA. As the result rang out, a murmur began to ripple through the audience. They could have accepted a 2-1 lead in the first round, but an outright defeat. For the fans who had lived through that performance, it was incomprehensible. Logically, the crowd had already stripped off their own shirts and danced along with Enfants Terribles. To lose the audience evaluation in such a state was an absurd anomaly. The audience had felt doubt in the first round, but now, in the second, they felt genuine indignation. Amidst this brewing storm, the stage moved toward the third round. Chapter 39, Side Story, before the third stage begins. 768 words. After the second stage ended, the PD of ASEAN watched the scene unfolding before him, ignoring his phone, which was ringing incessantly as if it were on fire. Hey, you have to manipulate the results based on the atmosphere. And why did you return the money? The money they had stuffed into his hands while asking for favors. He had returned that to them a long time ago. He had already made enough money producing the ASEAN. The only reason he was still working as the ASEAN PD, despite being able to climb to a much higher position, was solely because of his affection for the program. They're just talking a load of crap. He had a gut feeling. He knew that the current semifinals of ASEAN would become a legendary moment in the history of popular music, one that would be talked about for decades to come. When I first saw them, I thought they were just some random bunch, but they turned out to be monsters, didn't they? He had already expected Enfants Terribles to deliver a better performance than AAA. Operating a program like ASEAN gave him enough intuition to predict that much. However, Enfants Terribles was delivering a stage that went beyond excellent, and could only be described as great. Did they say that rock and roll, which they always have on their lips, is about burning with sincerity for what you love? He didn't possess sincerity regarding music itself. As a broadcast PD, he was a layman when it came to the technicalities of the art. However, his affection for ASEAN was sincere. If burning with sincerity was what defined rock and roll, then the actions he was about to take could also be called rock and roll. From now on, ASEAN will become a sanctuary for rock and roll. A survival program followed by those who pursue true romance, where everyone burns with sincerity for what they love. He was a PD. Creating programs was his specialty. Originally, the entertainment industry was full of lies. Because he hated that, he had extensively reorganized ASEAN, so it could show the public as much sincerity as possible. Wasn't it okay for there to be at least one sanctuary in the entertainment industry where lies did not exist? He watched the scene quietly, firming his own resolve. Tanaka Shuji, the buzzcut perfectionist bassist, shouted as he kicked a trash can in the waiting room. Damn it! If only I hadn't made that mistake. But he hadn't made a mistake at all. The mistake he was referring to was a microscopic tremor in his wrist that didn't affect the performance in the slightest. It was merely a minute vibration that only he could perceive because of his perfectionist nature regarding music. Shuji. As I shouted, Yokishi, the muscular mixed-race drummer, grabbed me with his brute strength, seemingly misunderstanding the situation. It's not what you think. I tightened my core and spoke as if shouting. Shuji, open your ears and listen carefully. In the first place, this wasn't anyone's fault. We gave it our all, played our music, and came down. What you're doing right now is an act of disrespect toward the 30,000 people who went wild for us. I get it, leader. But it's true that we lost. If so, then I'm the cause. The performances of Musulman and the leader were perfect. In the middle of that, the PD of ASEAN visited our waiting room. For some reason, He had a refreshed expression on his face. "Enfant terribles, you guys are going to lose this semi-final." What he told us was shocking news. So shocking that all three of us dropped the instruments we were holding. Now it's the final stage. Let's burn everything up and come back. We gathered in a huddle, grabbing each other's shoulders to solidify our resolve. Yokishi looked worried, but I knew he would do well on stage. "Don't worry, Yokishi. And I'll be covering for you with the vocals in the middle. Musulman, if you mess up, I'll cover you with the bass sound. I'll say it again. We're a mess when we're alone, but when we gather, we become monstrous children. That is enfant terribles. Fearless and unstoppable children beyond the control of adults. That was why we were the ones who could rise to any height. What is the goal? Victory." We shouted like a roar and ran up onto the stage with grim determination. The sight of them was nothing short of being called the most brilliant stars in the world. Chapter 40, I just wanted to start a band but the semi. 1,243 words. A crowd of over 30,000 people was staring at us. It was a sensation I had experienced twice before, but the intensity of that thrill hadn't diminished one bit compared to the first time. This time, I was focusing on the guitar. Though I provided chorus backing during the high-pitched segments, this song was fundamentally Yokishi's stage. My mission was to pour my soul into the guitar solo that resided at the end of Tears. Wah wah. As I gripped the microphone briefly to signal the start, the cheers from the audience filled the stadium, as if they might pierce the very sky. Their faces were brimming with anticipation for enfant terribles. What kind of stage will they show us this time? That was the collective thought of the 36,500 spectators in attendance. I brushed the reaction aside for a moment and handed the mic to our muscular drummer, Yokishi. Whatever you're feeling right now, you can let it out to the crowd. Hey man, you're the frontman. They'll probably hate seeing a guy like me doing anything other than just banging on the drums and singing the parts I'm told to. Though the performance hadn't even begun, Yokishi's mind was clouded with worry. In a conservative Japanese society, he had faced relentless persecution and contempt simply for being of mixed-race descent. The scars left by that reality weren't the kind that healed easily. And yet, you want me to speak. But the microphone was already in his hand. He knew I was a man of my word. If he tried to give it back, I'd probably chuck it off the stage or lie down and refuse to play until he did it. What was he feeling right now? Excitement. A physical rush. After a lifetime of being sidelined by discrimination, he was now receiving the roar of a massive audience. He channeled that emotion into his sincerity and shouted to the crowd. Move with the music. The skinhead bassist and the blonde handsome youth couldn't help but burst into laughter at those words. This was a brutal track plastered with high notes ranging from A4 to B4 from the very intro. A literal insane song, and he was asking them to just move with the music. To top it off, the climax spiked all the way up to AC5. For a man like Yokishi, Japan had never truly felt like his homeland. His mother had been treated with disdain despite being Japanese just for marrying someone from a distant land, and he himself had never been able to fit in with anyone. Because of that, his only friend had been the drums his father left behind. The muscular drummer was now drenched in sweat, singing with raw sincerity. His father, the only person who truly understood him, had left for a distant land with a smile, only to be taken by the cruel beast known as war. He had promised to say his hellos when he returned, telling his son he didn't need to say goodbye yet, but his father's final greeting had come in the form of a cold corpse. He had died while trying to save a comrade who had stepped into a minefield. Military awarded his father a medal, but no piece of metal could ever fill the void he left behind. The audience watched Enfant Terrible's stage with looks of genuine shock. Since the band had mostly performed upbeat music until now, this was a scenario the spectators could never have imagined. Some crowd members expressed dissatisfaction, but others were completely immersed, listening intently to the story of one man's life. Truly great music is often born when a person's life is poured into the notes. Farewell is a constant shadow lurking in all of our lives. The audience began to project their own loved ones onto the song. The initial murmurs of complaint vanished, replaced by a venue filled with people reminiscing about their pasts. As Yokishi sang, he thought of his father. Though his father had passed when he was young, he had never truly left Yokishi's heart. The memories his father left behind still influenced his path today. That was the weight of a familial bond. As the muscular drummer's piercing high notes concluded, the strings swelled, and the guitar solo of the blonde-haired youth began. While playing, I thought of Ai, the girl who grew up without a family. A fragile child who grew up without parents and didn't truly understand the concept of a bond, causing her to fear people while simultaneously craving connection more than anyone else behind a facade of strength. If Yokishi sang for the longing of those already gone, I played for those left lonely by their departures. I gripped the pick short and used palm muting to manipulate the resonance of the strings. Through these nuances, a guitarist transmits emotion to the audience. In my past life, I had been a guitarist specialized in these very technical tricks. As the song ended with Yokishi's monologue-like finish, the arena was swallowed by silence. Spectators were either shedding tears as they recalled their own memories or tilting their heads back with closed eyes, trying to keep their emotions in check. Enfant Terribles had completely overwhelmed AAA idol group, even in this third stage. They had showcased the absolute pinnacle of emotional expression achievable through band music. The three performances Enfant Terribles gave during the ASEAN semifinals would remain legendary, cited as the definitive textbook for bands for years to come. That fleeting moment when Enfant Terribles held the stage was nothing short of the single greatest golden age the Japanese music industry would ever know. Just as everyone sensed an inevitable victory for Enfant Terribles, the results began to flash across the screens behind the stage. AAA 2 versus Enfant Terribles 1. An unbelievable result appeared on the screen. The one most shocked by this was Nishijima of AAA. Weren't we the ones getting completely overwhelmed during this stage? By any metric, crowd reaction or raw skill, they had been crushed. The audience began to buzz with confusion. Amidst the brewing chaos, the blonde youth stepped toward the microphone. Everyone, please look at the screen behind me. Suddenly, the scoreboard vanished, replaced by a video recording with audio. The winner has to be AAA. You understand? We can't be sure about that yet. Listen, do you have any idea how much money we've pumped into raising those AAA kids? Our boys aren't getting the attention they need. We need them to reach the finals at least so we can squeeze some profit out of this, don't we? The video contained a threatening conversation between an executive from AAA's agency and the PD, alongside a history of text messages exchanged between them. This content was broadcasted live through ASEAN, reaching over 100 million people across the Japanese archipelago instantly. Watching this spectacle, the ASEAN PD let out a refreshed, satisfied smirk. ASEAN was a program that would rather commit whistleblowing and internal exposure than yield to threats. This fact would likely be the key to the show's long-term survival. It's mutually assured destruction, you bastards. Only then did the real results of the semifinals reveal themselves. AAA, the 0, versus Enfant Terribles, 3. The semifinals were a total landslide victory for Enfant Terribles. Equals 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 equals. The website for reading paid chapters is available on my Patreon. The number of chapters on Patreon, 115. Link, patreon.com/ultramagnus_t. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.